Recording in progress.
Good evening. Thanks, everybody. Welcome to the City Council regular meeting this Monday evening, July 20th. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. City Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Certainly. Mayor Lorraine. Councilmember Newsom.
Here.
Councilmember Diaz-Nash.
Present.
Councilmember Danielle Sverko-Goditsky is absent and excused. Deputy Mayor Fernandez.
Here.
And Mayor Lorraine.
Here. Thank you and welcome, everyone. We're excited to be here in person with options for those who choose not to be in person to still participate virtually. Thank you for your cooperation and for helping us maintain an efficient and accessible meeting environment. There are several ways to participate. For those attending in person, you may complete a yellow request to speak slip and hand it to the city clerk. If you're participating remotely, use the raise your hand feature in Zoom, and you will be called on at the appropriate time. If you're calling in via phone, press *9 to raise your hand, and when you're called upon, you may press *6 to unmute. These options for public comment will remain available until I close public comment periods for each specific item. For any members of the public watching us on YouTube tonight, if you wish to provide live public comment, please note that we don't currently have that feature available in YouTube. You must join the meeting through the Zoom webinar using the access information listed on our agenda, which is available on our website at cityofsanmateo.org. We'll begin our meeting with two ceremonial items, the first of which is Parks and Recreation Appreciation Month. We have a proclamation and we have a guest with us coming to the podium, Marie Silva, Interim Director of Parks and Recreation. And many other members of Parks and Recreation Department, thank you all for joining us tonight. I have a proclamation which I'd like to read.
Don't be afraid, guys. Don't be afraid. We're all here together, one team. Yeah, exactly.
It's a city facility.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. Thank you for the acknowledgement this evening. I have truly been blessed the last 2.5 years to be part of this team. And this team is made up of very incredibly powerful and dedicated members to the city. This includes everyone from recreation, from golf and park maintenance staff, park rangers, arbor management, our business admin team that helps keep the wheels on the machine going, and our one and only CIP project manager. Truly, every single member has their hand in making our department and our city successful within the Parks and Recreation group. Together, they create safe environments and engaging programs that help our community members play, have fun, grow, develop, and dance in the parks on Thursday nights. But most importantly for me, I'm very appreciative of their dedication, their resiliency, and their willingness on the daily grind, seen and unseen. They truly are the difference makers that make not only our department successful, but our community thrive. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I will now read a proclamation honoring Parks and Recreation Appreciation Month, July. Whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the city of San Mateo. And whereas Parks and Recreation promotes health and wellness, improving the physical and mental health of people who live near parks. And whereas Parks and Recreation promotes time spent in nature, which positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performance and well-being and alleviating illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's. And whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, swimming pools, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. And whereas parks and recreation programs and educational activities, such as out-of-school time programs, youth sports, and environmental education, are critical to childhood development. And whereas parks and recreation increases a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas parks and recreation is essential and adaptable infrastructure that makes our communities resilient in the face of natural disasters and climate change. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas the City of San Mateo recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now, therefore, I, Adam Lorraine, Mayor of the City of San Mateo, and on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize the month of July as Parks and Recreation Appreciation Month. Thank you all, and we may take a photo to commemorate.
You guys can come in close.
I know.
Good to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice to be with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And congratulations. We have one more ceremonial item tonight, Disability Pride Month. I have a proclamation for this as well, and with us, our special guests, Ligia Andrade Zuniga, Executive Director with the Center for Independence of Individuals with Disabilities, and with her today is Raymond Jabala, a Peer Support Coordinator, and Pete Williams, an Independent Living Specialist. Welcome, everyone. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members, City staff, and members of our community. Thank you, Mayor Lorraine, for this great honor. I appreciate how you've brought us in today to acknowledge our community. My name is Ligia Andrade Zuniga. I'm the Executive Director at the Center for Independence of Individuals with Disabilities. On behalf of CID, we want to thank you for this proclamation recognizing Disability Pride Month. We are honored to accept it. This July marks the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, signed into law in 1990, a landmark civil rights law that affirmed people with disabilities have the right to participate fully in every aspect of community life. Nearly a decade later, the Olmstead versus LC Supreme Court decision reaffirmed that people with disabilities have the right to live, work, and receive services in the community, not be unnecessarily segregated in institutions. These victories were not gifts. They were won through decades of organizing, advocacy, and direct action by disabled people who refuse to accept exclusion. Yet today, those hard-fought rights are being challenged. Barriers to accessible housing, transportation, employment, healthcare, education, and community living persist, and protections that generations fought to secure continue to face threats. Disability rights require constant vigilance because civil rights are never self-sustaining. Here in San Mateo, a city that values innovation, inclusion, and community, we have an opportunity to lead by ensuring accessibility is not an afterthought, but a foundation. Accessibility benefits everyone. When we build communities that welcome disabled people, we build communities that work better for all. CID has proudly served San Mateo County for decades, empowering people with disabilities to live independently, advocate for themselves, and participate fully in civic life. We know that people with disabilities are not broken, sick, inferior, or a burden. We are a beautiful and essential part of human diversity. The barriers we face are created not by our bodies or minds, but by ableism and environments that fail to include everyone. I'll close with the words of disability justice activist Stacey Park Melvern, whose legacy continues to inspire us. Disability justice is simply another term for love. Thank you for this recognition, for standing with the disability community, and for helping build a San Mateo where everyone belongs. Happy Disability Pride Month. Thank you.
It's an honor to have you here tonight. And to commemorate, I'll just read this proclamation. Whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, was signed into law on July 26, 1990, to ensure the civil rights of citizens with disabilities. And whereas this month, our community recognizes the importance of providing accommodations and opportunities for people with disabilities in all areas of public life. And whereas for 36 years, this historic civil rights law has protected the rights of people with disabilities and guarantees equal opportunity employment, transportation accommodations, telecommunications services, and access to state and local governments. And whereas the City of San Mateo affirms the principles of equality and inclusion for persons with disabilities as set forth for the state of California and as embodied in the ADA. And whereas as barriers and discrimination continue to impact people with disabilities, numerous organizations in San Mateo County work with constituents and communities to bring forth the promise of hope and freedom that is envisioned by the passage of the ADA. Now, therefore, I, Adam Lorraine, Mayor of the City of San Mateo, and on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize the month of July as Disability Pride Month, and hereby extend greetings and best wishes to all observing. We could take a photo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We are now moving beyond the ceremonial portion of tonight's meeting, which includes the business items being considered by the council. For that reason, I would like to remind all in the room and online that we will be enforcing our rules of decorum. As such, we do not allow for cheering, jeering, or booing during the business portion of the meeting, as this tends to put a chill on public comment. Our goal is to ensure that all perspectives are heard. Our motto is give respect, get respect, and we appreciate your cooperation with this. City Clerk, please read the consent calendar.
With pleasure, Mayor Lorraine. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered by the council to be routine and will be enacted by one motion without discussion. If discussion is desired, that item may be removed and considered separately. Item number 3, Marina Lagoon Operations and Maintenance Permanent Assistance Agreement. Item number 4, Marina Branch Public Library Restoration Project Furnishings and Shelving Agreements. Item number 5, Public Utility Easement Dedication Acceptance Adoption. Item number 6, Collection System Construction Management Services for the Clean Water Program Amendments. Item number 7, Emergency Rental Assistance Program Approval. Item number 8, Pump Station Mechanic 1 and 2 and Pump Station Mechanic 3 Job Specification Amendment. Item number 9, Basin D Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project Bid Rejection. Item number 10, Diesel Fuel Procurement and Delivery Amendment. Item number 11, Public Works Standard Drawings Update. Item number 12, Below Market Rental Rates, Sales Prices, and Unit Community Priorities Adoption. Item number 13, 19th Avenue and Fashion Island Boulevard Multimodal Improvements Project Adoption. Item number 14, Monitoring, Reporting, and Regulatory Compliance Services at the East 3rd Avenue Landfill Agreement. Item number 15, Storm Drain Master Plan Update Agreement. Item number 16, San Mateo Public Library Main Branch Cafe Operating Lease Agreement. Item number 17, Youth and Adult Tennis and Pickleball Recreation Programs Amendment. Item number 18, Citywide Commercial Economic Assessment Services Appropriation and Agreement. Item number 19, Library Materials Acquisition Agreement. And finally, item number 20, Boards and Commissions Appointment Subcommittee Appointment Recommendation.
Thank you. Is there any member of the council who would like to pull an item from the consent calendar?
Sorry.
Yes, Deputy Mayor Fernandez.
I was hoping to not necessarily pull, but ask some questions about item number 7. Would I need to pull it in order to ask further questions about item number 7?
I would say, well, unless it's quick, but I would suggest to pull the item and ask questions.
I would pull it if I
Okay.
would like to pull that, please.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. So we will pull that and review item 7 separately. If there are any members of the public who wish to comment on any consent calendar item, now would be the time to make your comment. This is for consent calendar items only, just the ones the city clerk just read. City clerk, do we have any public comment?
Yes, Mayor Lorraine, we received requests to speak on consent calendar item. If you do wish to speak on any of the consent calendar items, please provide me with a request to speak slip at this time. We will be closing the request to speak period. If you're participating in our virtual environment and wish to speak on any of the consent calendar items, please raise your hand now. We will be calling the name of our final speaker momentarily. Mayor Lorraine, that sets the total number of speakers at 4 requests to speak for the consent calendar, which sets the speaking time at 3 minutes per speaker. And we have our final speaker will be Grace Zureb. So when I call your name, if you could please line up to my right, that'll help us make sure we receive all of your public comments tonight. And we'll begin with Lisa Maui, followed by Michael Reagan and Vikash B.
Good evening, council members. More than 30 days have passed since my June 18th email regarding the city's failure to comply with its code, yet I have not received any response from any member of the city council or the city attorney. Silence itself is a decision. By refusing to explain how the municipal code and commissioner code of conduct were applied, the city council and the city attorney have left the public to conclude that the city ethics standards were not considered in moving forward with the appointment of Seema Patel. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered. Specifically, what facts did the council rely on to conclude that Ms. Patel satisfies the city ethical standards that require commissioners to instill confidence in the integrity of government, uphold the highest standards of morality, and treat members of public with dignity, courtesy, and respect. Several people, including former public officials and a council member, described intimidation, name-calling, and disrespectful treatment. Conduct plainly inconsistent with Commissioner's Code of Conduct. How does the City Council and the City Attorney simply ignore this? I ask that you address these questions on record. If the city, and it looks like you will, be moving forward with this appointment without answering these questions, the reasonable conclusion is that the city failed to apply its ethics standards or treated them as irrelevant. Thank you.
Thank you. And unfortunately, we do appear to be experiencing some technical difficulties for our public commenters. If you could please draw your attention to the speaker time directly in front of you.
The
Next speaker
3
will
minutes?
you'll have 3 minutes. Our next speaker will be Michael Reagan, followed by Kevin Simpson and Grace.
Good evening. Actually, I don't really want to be up here. I was hoping that you guys would handle the situation the way I believe it should have been handled. But here we go. I did attend the Planning Commission selection meeting. I believe it was in April. Because of personal statements that night and emails that you all up there received, 3 of you stated that you could not recommend Seema Patel for the position. Lisa Diaz Nash was not in attendance, but Danielle was there. Adam, you're our District 5 representative, but Adam, you didn't. In fact, you completely disregarded all of the complaints. Not only that, but you did not rank any of the other candidates as the other city council people did. We know that Ms. Patel is your friend and that she agrees with a lot of the different types of things that you're trying to do as a city council person, but that goes against the ethics. I was on the Citizens Ethics San Mateo Committee that you guys passed reluctantly, and that was one of the reasons that we tried to install these ethics, so that you guys would have some way of expressing your feelings in the rules that you set up. Rob, I was very proud of you that night for doing the right thing, even though your opponent set up a camera recording your every word, in my opinion, to intimidate you and use those recordings in the upcoming election. It was pretty shameful. And then more recently, to our city manager and city attorney, your lack of input and clarification regarding these troubling issues could say that you're somewhat complicit. To rectify what so many San Mateo residents are upset about, simply start over, re-interview, and select a candidate that does not bring so much baggage to this position. Please pull item 20 tonight. We would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Kevin Simpson, and our final speaker will be Grace.
Thanks, Council. I had hoped that after the last meeting, when everyone got to express their opinions about item number 20, that we would proceed to do what your policy and practice is, which is you ranked 2 candidates to fill any vacancy, and you would simply act on that ranking that you did at the time. Instead, we've given ourselves 2 opportunities for people to stand up here and speculate about what someone else is going to do, to mischaracterize someone's remarks, and to use what I consider to be intimidation tactics themselves, all while describing themselves as being guardians of ethics. Now, these people were not happy with the decisions that the Planning Commission has made, in many cases unanimously over the last few years, in keeping with the policy and the city plan of this city. And they will take any opportunity to posture in their fight, to tear down others, and to disqualify people simply by complaining. I saw the city council meeting recording where the comments were made. And while I might not have said the same things, I don't think that anything that was said in that meeting was necessarily disqualifying. And for these folks to stand here and say that they can look in one individual's heart and know how she feels, or to know what she's going to do in the future for her campaign, is simply ridiculous. And they like to talk about the San Mateo way, but it seems their San Mateo way is to bully people, to show up at public meetings with bullhorns, to intimidate people into being afraid to act according to the policy and the procedures that they've established. That's not the San Mateo that I live in and cherish. And I hope that you will just proceed with item 20 as your policy and procedures call for. Thank you.
Thank you. And as was mentioned earlier, our final speaker on this item will be Grace.
Good evening, Council. I watched the last meeting where there were several comments made about Ms. Patel, and that prompted me to come forward with similar experiences with her. And I regret not doing it sooner, but it's been very difficult for me. Again, my name is Grace Schwerup, and everything I'm about to say is supported by documentation, and I welcome the opportunity to share it with any of you at any point, including the audience members that are in favor of her, so you can see what she's really like. Without having ever met me, Ms. Patel publicly posted information about my divorce and court records on social media, mocking my character without understanding the facts or circumstances behind those records, nor waiting for the case to be concluded where there was omissions of perjury and conspiracy against me by my ex-husband and others. She also called me an anti-housing activist, which I consider defamatory, being in real estate development for over 20 years, and dismissed my real estate experience, saying, anyone can claim anything on social media, followed by a emoji with a wink. She also insinuated that I was bigoted because I described a person I saw during a hammer attack. I described him as a construction worker because he was working on a roof. She claimed that I was reinforcing generalizations about people from a specific profession, but she had no problem later calling him a day laborer. With my career in real estate, again, spanning over 20 years, including vice president of real estate development, building TODs and affordable housing, and the first affordable housing for sale project without government funding in California, I would not feel comfortable bringing a project before the Planning Commission with Ms. Patel serves on. I do not have confidence that I would receive a fair and impartial hearing. I urge you to appoint someone whose conduct reflects fairness, impartiality, and respect the public deserves. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mayor Lorraine. That concludes public comment on the consent calendar.
Thank you. At this time, I think I would ask for council to consider the items that were not pulled by council together. That would be, I guess, items 3 through 6 and 8 through 19. 3 through 20, thank you. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. City Clerk, can you have a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Our Deputy Mayor Fernandez,
Yes.
Councilmember Diaz-Nash,
Yes. Councilmember
Newsom,
Yes.
Mayor Lorraine.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. I would like to maybe just address item 7 before we continue. Deputy Mayor Fernandez.
Thank you very much. So item 7 is the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, and I am proud that San Mateo has an emergency rental assistance program for those renters in the city of San Mateo that are experiencing challenges with paying their rent. It is facilitated through Samaritan House. And so I have heard from some residents of North Central that there have been some challenges in granting access to that money. And I was just wondering if we had staff or perhaps Housing Manager Horst available who might be able to tell us a little bit about the process and any discussions that have happened with Samaritan House to talk about how Zach, in Rachel's place, to talk a little bit about the process and what kind of discussions we've had since I brought this topic forward with staff.
Yes. Good evening, good evening, council members. Zach Dahl, Community Development Director. I'm here with Jennifer Moore, one of our housing specialists, and I know Housing Manager Rachel Horst is also available online. I can provide a brief summary and then happy to get more specific if necessary. We have had conversations with Samaritan House over this past year and provided a couple of updates, including some kind of responses or clarifications as to what goes into the screening process. On average, based on our conversations with Samaritan House, it takes around 10 days from initial application, receipt of application to disbursement of funds. However, during that time, there are also other activities taking place, including work with legal providers and maybe contact with a landlord to address issues more directly and to avoid eviction if there are pause proceedings. So there are various circumstances that go on, and obviously there is more need than there is funding. And there are also certain circumstances that are not eligible for the funding criteria. And so we're happy to look into any of the specific concerns, talk further, also facilitate targeted discussions with Samaritan House to look into these individual issues. But I'm happy to answer more specific questions following that.
No, that actually answers my question. So the average processing time is 10 days then?
Yes, that's correct.
And approximately how much of the funds have been utilized year to year?
Coming up by the end of this month, we will have fully utilized all of the city's funds, $150,000, and so then that's why this item, based on council direction, is looking to increase the funds up to $200,000 to fund the program for next program year.
And my understanding is that city staff would be open to having discussions with the residents who spoke to me about the challenges that they've had.
Absolutely.
With the rental program, so that perhaps there might be a more organic solution beyond the contract?
Absolutely. We're always open to hearing specific concerns, looking more closely at what may have gone on and then how the program could be more efficient or more effectively administered.
Okay, good. Mr. Mayor, I'm comfortable moving item 7 forward then at this time.
Okay, thank you. Is that a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. There are other questions.
Through the mayor?
Yes,
No.
Councilmember.
I would just say, it sounds as if there's also an education opportunity. If there are ways to help the public understand how to be better prepared or how to make it go faster, that might be something to think about as well.
Definitely. We'll continue to work closely with Samaritan House on that and provide resources.
Thank you. Councilmember Newsom.
Mayor, another request would be that as we move this program forward, I'd love to hear the success stories and maybe the non-success stories of how this has worked, how many families we've been able to serve and keep in their homes, how many ultimately were able to stay in their homes versus had to move. It would be great to have some statistics of how the program's working so we can know that we're succeeding and continue to fund it going into the future. That said, I'm very supportive of this. Thank you.
Absolutely, and we are planning. We had done kind of a preliminary year 1 report, and so following completion of this program year, we are planning on putting out a full annual report on it, and we will definitely include that information.
Thank you. Do I have? Oh, I'm sorry, City Manager.
We need public comment.
Okay. Do we have public comment on this item?
Mayor Lorraine, so this is for agenda item number 7, Emergency Rental Assistance Program approval. If you wish to speak on this item and have not already provided me with a request to speak slip, please do so now. We'll be giving just a few moments to do that. I have In our virtual environment, Charmaine, you have had your hand up for some time. Just to clarify, this is for agenda item number 7. If you wish to speak on the emergency rental assistance program, please keep your hand raised. I see it's been lowered. Mayor Lorraine, we have no request to speak on that item.
Okay, thank you. I'll close public comment for item 7. Yeah, you're welcome. Please, Councilmember Diaz-Nash.
Through the mayor, this is not on 7, it's on the earlier items on the consent agenda. Is that okay? I just wanted to say 2 things to celebrate. In addition to the fact that the emergency rental assistance program was increased, I believe it's the largest one in San Mateo County. So I think that's great, and we should really reinforce that. Item number 16, we are going to have a library cafe and ground floor cart, which in our 3rd Avenue library, which I know we've been trying to do for quite some time. So I'm really hoping that that's a success and that we show we broadcast it to the public. And then finally, item number 18, the citywide commercial economic assistance program. This is putting the teeth into what we said earlier about really wanting to understand what is going on across the city in terms of sales, in terms of business trends. How can we help our businesses, really putting our arms around the overall business trends in San Mateo so we can strengthen them. And I think that's a really great thing that I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Of course. At this time, I would ask if there's a motion for item number 7.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. City Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Deputy Mayor Fernandez?
Yes.
Councilmember Newsom?
Yes.
Councilmember Diaz-Nash?
Yes.
Mayor Lorraine?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. And at this time, I would like to invite our newly appointed commissioner to come to the front of the dais to receive the oath of office from our city clerk.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me.
Sure.
I state your name.
I, Seema Patel,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United
and
States
the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which
the duties upon which
I am about to enter.
I am about to enter. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Next on the agenda is general public comment. Members of the public who wish to comment on any item not appearing on the agenda may address the City Council at this time. State law prevents council from taking action on any matter not on the agenda. However, your comments may be referred to staff for follow-up. This public comment section is generally limited to a total of 15 minutes. However, that is subject to council's discretion and can be extended if council wishes to do so. If needed, an opportunity for additional public comment may also be provided later in the agenda. City Clerk, please tally the number of requests to speak on general public comment.
Certainly, Mayor Lorraine. At this time, I have 7 requests to speak in chambers and 1 in our virtual environment. We will be calling the name of our last speaker, after which point we will not be accepting any additional requests to speak. So if you are considering submitting general public comment, please provide your request to speak slip or raise your hand now.
Sorry, we haven't. This is for general public comment.
Okay. It looks like we have a total of 11 requests to speak on general public comment. Our final request to speak in chambers will be Madeline, and our final request to speak in our virtual environment will be Charmaine. We'll begin with our in-person request to speak at this time. When I call your name, if you can please line up to my right, that'll make sure we get through all of our comments expeditiously. So our first 3 requests to speak will be from Ronald Golan, followed by Kevin Simpson and Donovan Kenway.
Good evening, your council, mayor, and staff. My name is Ronald Guillen, a resident of 2910 Edison Street. I'm here to formally place the city of San Mateo on notice regarding persistent pattern of safety violation at my residence involving the property owner Salvador Urbina at 2910 Edison LLC. Since July 14th, Salvador Urbina of 2910 Edison Street has been personally performing structural alterations of the building, primary shore exit stairways without building permits, engineering insight, or required tenants notice. Furthermore, I have documented Salvador Urbina on the active demolition site with open containers of 211 reserve alcohol while overseeing construction activities. This reckless behavior on the site, ongoing structural modifications, demonstrates a complete disregard for professional safety protocols and welfare of the residents. This action violates fundamental requirements of the California Building Code, which mandates all required fire egress paths to be maintained free of obstructions to ensure use during an emergency. This is a direct escalation of pattern of unpermitted work starting with my formal 10-page document that I presented to the city on April 6, 2026 regarding an unpermitted 46 sewer replacement. The city failure to act on the evidence had emboldened Salvador Urbina of 2910 Edison LLC to continue these willful violations. Salvador Urbina is currently performing work in violation business and professional code section 7110 and 7090 by failing to secure permits and utilizing unqualified labor for structural work. LLC is exposing the LLC and the city to massive liability. I'm requesting that this city direct building department take the following enforcement actions: issue immediate stop work orders, order immediate professional safety inspections, and initial a formal investigation to construction activity performed at the property since March 2026.
Thank you, Ronald. Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you. Thank you. And our next speaker will be Kevin Simpson, followed by Donovan Kenway and Mei Lee.
Thank you, council, mayor, deputy mayor, former mayors, a lot of mayors up there. Also to city staff for this opportunity to speak. You know, I've been here a couple times before. We just had 4th of July, and the 2 prior 4th of July were miserable in this city. And I'm not sure how Chief Barberini and his team did it, or the rest of the city staff, but I want to thank you for making this such a much better experience for all the residents of San Mateo. In my neighborhood last year, the fireworks started at 8 o'clock, commercial grade. I was concerned about houses in my neighborhood burning down, including the one next to me, which is wood frame. And it went on till 5:30 a.m. and it was a miserable experience. And the year before wasn't a whole lot better. This year, it was night and day. And I was a little skeptical, and I've been very harsh. Some of you got a few phone calls and texts from me in 2025 that were almost as colorful as the fireworks. But this year, it was a completely different experience. And it just goes to show that if you put creativity and thought and planning into it, we can make real improvements for the lives of our residents. So I want to thank the police department and the chief. I want to thank all the members of the city staff that were involved in this, what I think was a pretty complex effort. I didn't think signs and posters were going to get people who are willing to abuse their neighbors to stop doing it. So I suspect that there was a little more to it than that. But whatever you did, thank you from the bottom of my heart, because this was a much better year for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next 3 speakers will be Donovan, followed by Lisa Tanner and Mei Lee.
Council.
I appreciate this opportunity to speak before you, and I come to you as I would like to see reinvestment in San Mateo's Coyote Point Marina and Park. Since the storms have devastated the park's landscape, there are barren areas where literally hundreds of trees should be replaced, and preferably with some of the beautiful cypress trees that they're already replacing along the shore. Second, the marina parking lot has been neglected for so many years that it's in need of a repaving. It's past the point of just fixing potholes. There are some other opportunities at the park, possibly to put in some shade over some of the ramadas and picnic tables, maybe incorporate some solar. That's the bulk of what I have. The park staff's pretty great, and the marina staff is fantastic. So really no complaints about the staff, just a request to direct some efforts and some finances in that direction, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next three speakers.
Sorry, may I respond really quickly? Is that okay?
Maybe we can wait until.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say that Coyote Point is a county park, so we don't fund it. We don't fund any of the land there. That is all San Mateo County land. So you'd actually need to address that to our County Board of Supervisors, and they're having a meeting tomorrow at 9 o'clock in Redwood City.
Is that a separate Department of Parks, or is it all under the same?
It's a separate entity. It's a level above us on the government scale.
Okay. I understood it to be all the same San Mateo County
No,
Park,
unfortunately not. It's the county, not the city.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
And if I may, through the mayor, just a point of clarification. The Brown Act allows for a brief general response to public comments. I think traditionally that would happen towards the end of the public comment period, but I think that was fine.
Thank you. Our next three speakers will be Lisa Tanner, followed by Mei Lee and TJ.
Thanks for that nice proclamation for Park and Rec today. We'd be remiss not to mention Joanne McGreeny. As a member of the public, I've sat on a number of boards, and I've had a lot of interaction with a lot of city staff, including Ms. McGreeny. I was very unhappy to learn that the public would not be given the courtesy or opportunity to say goodbye to her as she left her position. So I'd like to say my goodbye here to her in recognition. Thank you for everything, Joanne. Your dedication to San Mateo, your dedication made San Mateo a better place. Your work with PAL benefited countless kids and families in our community. Your work ethic was unmatched, along with your ability to make residents feel like a priority. You moved mountains. You left some mighty big shoes to fill, and you will be greatly missed. On an alternate subject, currently, I'm viewing the city of San Mateo as a place where ethics go to die.
Thank you. Our next three speakers will be Mei Lee, followed by TJ and Jordan Grimes.
Hey everyone, this is May again. Okay, so I came here for the meeting since January this year. I've been sharing something happening to just not me and also in the general public. So I come here basically not just only address my situation that I've been experiencing and then things that we found, including radio frequencies elevated. So I basically want to draw public awareness for something that a bio-nano experiment in the communities, potentially. And this is may not only limited to the city or to, this is a large scale. And also bioinfo and energy harvesting and biohacking, basically, including our brain. And technology-wise, I already shared previously. And this is Jesse Beltran again, that it's on YouTube. Everyone take a research and share with your doctors, please. This title called is True Nano Tech Found Inside of Humans All Over the World. Okay, so this is using something that with the signal detector. It's not a regular hospital detection. So when people are being induced with whether it's a psychological issue or whatever, they don't have a proper diagnosis. Okay, so in our neighborhood particularly, I detected a high radio frequency, and then my longtime neighbor, that volunteer emergency responder, his wall was below 0.2, and other neighbors that below was above 6 to 12. So this is very bizarre. And we also installed this street light deflectors. And the public record I found was the 2024, which was initiated by Rob, but it was based on some information.
Thank you.
But it was installed long
Thank you,
before
May.
that.
Our
It was
next.
2017
Thank you, May.
sometime.
May, time is
So
up.
I will
Thank
come
you.
back for more follow-up.
Thank you. Our next three speakers. Thank you. Our next three speakers will be TJ, followed by Jordan Grimes and Madeline.
How you guys doing? So based on all the recent news involving flock cameras and the previous comments of concern from residents at prior city council meetings, I was just curious what the city plans to do and what stance they're taking in regards to our data and plans with the contracts.
Thank you. Our next two speakers will be Jordan Grimes, followed by Madeline.
Good evening, Council. Honorable Mayor Jordan Grimes, lifelong resident of District 3. I've been here a lot more than I would like to lately. I think like a lot of people, don't particularly relish spending my Monday nights in this council chamber. Not that I don't appreciate what all of you do, but I am here to ask for leadership. Leadership that we haven't seen, but that I hope we will in the future. This entire episode, extending back over the last 2 months with regard to the Planning Commission, has been pretty disturbing as someone who cares about this city. We have, I think, really seen a deterioration in how people treat each other. And not only in that, but in the way that people think about respect and think about ethics. I think we've seen the idea of ethics weaponized as something to be used as a cudgel, that if you disagree with someone, that is inherently all of a sudden disrespectful, and not only disrespectful, but unethical. And most of the city doesn't see this. Like most of the other 100 and something thousand people are just trying to go about their lives and get on with their days. But it is really disturbing to see this almost Orwellian kind of thought springing up. And I would like this council going forward to really attempt to address that. I appreciate all of what you do. I appreciate your time, but we need more from you, and I hope we'll get it. Thank you.
Moving on to our final speaker in chambers will be Madeline.
Actually, it's Madeline. Okay, there. Hello. I've been a resident in the area for a long time, since 1974, and all I can say is that I have seen a tremendous change in San Mateo, and I think what I have to do now is ask a question: how much more building is to be anticipated? Because what I have seen and observed is an inordinate amount of building. I understand that apartments are needed, but we have no downtown supermarket. I don't know how long it will be before we do. Pretty soon Safeway will be gone, and yet we keep seeing building of apartments. I wonder how long it'll be before the property value of the suburban area, which is extremely expensive, that part of San Mateo, before that will start to decelerate. So who do I talk to about these things? Or can you speak to any of the difficulties that I'm having and the things that I'm observing? Who can speak to that?
Not directly at this time, Adam, because it's not on our agenda, but we can take it under advisement.
So you'll put it on your agenda?
No, not necessarily.
So through the mayor, I'm happy to have staff connect with the speaker this evening.
Thank you very much.
That's it? Okay.
Thank you. Moving to our virtual environment. Before we do so, I'd like to just remind our speakers in our virtual environment, if you are providing general public comment, you must speak to issues that address subject matter jurisdiction within the city of San Mateo. If you refuse to do so, you will receive a warning. If you continue to do so, your speaking rights may be removed. That being said, we'll invite our first speaker with the name E.T. Dodge to please unmute your mic.
Good evening. Sorry, my name's Eric. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Mayor Lorraine and council members. I'm here tonight to urge this council to take proactive municipal action regarding the exploratory proposals by Global Stack LLC to build an industrial-scale data center at the San Mateo County Event Center. While the fairgrounds are a county asset, the immediate infrastructure, grid strain, and noise fallout will directly impact the city of San Mateo's residents, so I'm coming to you for help. This proposal directly conflicts with the municipal land use integrity. The event center is zoned quasi-public, a classification explicitly intended to safeguard our residential neighborhoods from heavy industrial encroachment, forcing an 8 to 10 megawatt facility backed by rows of diesel emergency generators into a public space right next to Parkside, a dense, diverse, and one of the last middle-class family neighborhoods in San Mateo, is a huge environmental justice failure. More concerningly, Global Stack LLC was formed just 4 months ago. Its executive officers come from garment sourcing and cannabis packaging, possessing zero background in utility infrastructure. They list their subsidiaries, do not legally exist in the California State Registry, and their president used his recent position, which ended this June, on the Orange County Event Center board to fast-track meetings to exploit county fairgrounds that he knows are in desperate need of money. Other California communities, like Calistoga and Solano County, saw through this and halted discussions. The city needs to be prepared in case our Board of Supervisors refuses to hold San Mateo County's Event Center board members and CEO Deanna Stower accountable for even allowing these talks to take place. If the county is permitted to bypass local protections to lease public land for private industrial-scale infrastructure projects, it strips our city of its municipal planning authority and establishes a dangerous precedent for future land use across San Mateo. I urge this council to assert its jurisdiction, to ask the Planning Commission to review this zoning incompatibility, ask the city manager to study the local grid and noise impacts, and pass a formal resolution opposing the project to protect the quality of life of the entire city of San Mateo. Thank you very much for your time and all the work you do.
Thank you. And moving on to our final speaker for general public comment, Charmaine. Please unmute your mic.
Hello, I'm Charmaine Messina and a 40-year resident of San Mateo. Thank you for this opportunity. I too am very concerned about leadership and following the city council and the city attorney and everyone else following the municipal code and the handbook on how commissioners are chosen and their qualifications. All throughout the handbook, sorry about that. There are numerous provisions about how commissioners need to be able to listen to the community they serve, and treat everyone with respect, seek and understand different perspectives. Yet what I heard through this meeting was basically dismissing people who spoke last time with actual experiences, where Seema Patel was dismissive, was abusive, and was downright rude and didn't listen to their perspectives. It took a tremendous amount of courage for somebody like Grace to come up before you and testify to her own experiences. Yet you guys didn't listen to that at all. And it really concerns me that you have not responded to Lisa Maley's letter. It seems like the handbook and your municipal code are just a bunch of words to make you seem good, but in fact, you don't follow it. So I'm not somebody who's using ethics as a cudgel. I'm just asking you to give respect, then you get respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Lorraine, that concludes general public comment.
Thank you for those who gave public comment. I would like to just ask city staff if they happen to have any response to any particular public comments we received tonight.
So I think we received a public comment on a potential data center at the event center. I know that the county is exploring a proposal in this area. Staff will be sending a letter later on this week notifying the county that want to make sure that it meets our zoning requirements here in the city. Additionally, I know that staff is looking into what the specific current zoning requirements are in that area where the event center site is overall. So we'll be looking into that further.
Sure, Councilmember Newsom, you have a comment?
Member of the public mentioned a property at 2910 Edison. Can we make sure
That is already on my list to follow up on with city staff. So we take all, have all the notes. So we'll go ahead and we'll follow up on that.
Thanks.
And then I believe just on the flock item, Chief, are we coming with an item in October? Yes. So we're doing just a full-on police, just overview of the work that our wonderful police team does. And so with that, flock will be one of the many areas that we'll cover in October.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I appreciate that. Thank you. We'll now move on to our next item of business, which is item 21, appeal of a planning commission approval of a new 6-story multifamily residential development adoption. We have with us Joanna Winter from a planning manager with community development, Greg Powell with M Group, consulting planner. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. And we're also joined by Public Works staff as well, who can answer any questions on Public Works issues. I will turn it over to consulting planner Greg Powell for the presentation.
Good evening. The subject of this presentation is the appeal of the Planning Commission decision to approve a 6-story building at 715 through 733 North San Mateo Drive. Before I get into the full presentation, I just want to do a quick overview. My presentation will include a project background where I'll talk about the location, the chronology, and the description of the project, the regulatory setting, which is the sort of the framework offered by state and local regulations on how to consider the appeal. I'll do a quick overview of the appeal and then the staff recommendation. So the project is located in North San Mateo. In this image, you can see a yellow outline along North San Mateo Drive. The red is the boundary between Burlingame and San Mateo, and also locates Caltrain rail corridor. And so again, the project's outlined in yellow. The project's review with the city started in November of 2024 with a submittal of an SB 330 preliminary application. As required by local regulations, the applicant had a neighborhood informational meeting in February of 2025. The formal application was submitted in April 2025. And then the city commenced a review of the project for completeness and consistency. And this is completeness and consistency review that was done by the Development Review Board. And that ran from April 2025 through January of 2026. The project was ultimately deemed complete in January and then scheduled for review by the Planning Commission. Planning Commission held a hearing on March 24th, and then the appeal was filed on April 2nd. The description of the project, I'm going to roll through a few slides here, is to demolish the existing buildings on this site and build a 6-story housing project. It would include 181 dwelling units and 19 very low income dwellings, ground floor and basement level parking, and then dwellings on the ground floor all the way through floor 6. 180 parking spaces would be provided in the basement garage and in the ground floor garage. And then residential amenities would be provided, and this is a view of the site from Villa Terrace, of a roof deck and a pool and lounge area. Additional details of the project may be found on pages 1 and 2 of the agenda report. And a little close-up of the private open space that's proposed. So the Planning Commission held a hearing on March 24th, 2026. There were public speakers present, and the applicant spoke. The Planning Commission, before taking action on the project, received a number of conditions of approval that were being amended by staff, and then voted to approve the project on a 4-0 vote. When the Planning Commission approved the project, they confirmed that it met all applicable objective standards in the general plan, zoning code, and other local policy documents that were in effect at the time that the preliminary application was submitted under SB 330. Now moving on to sort of the local regulatory setting. The site is designated by the general plan, residential medium 2. The site's also one of 10 sub-areas of the Strive San Mateo General Plan study area. That's areas that the city increase the development potential and increase the density potential. So the density that's in the zoning ordinance and the general plan allows 6-story buildings and a maximum of 99 units per acre. The next important thing to think about for this project review is the state laws that govern review of housing. And these are laws that are applicable to states and counties across the state. The first is the Housing Accountability Act. This is an act that limits the ability of any agency to either deny or reduce the density or render a housing project infeasible if it's a project that meets objective standards. Should a city or county wish to deny, the city would need to find that the project would have a specific adverse impact. A few other state laws that are important to talk about is the Housing Crisis Act. It's also known as Senate Bill 330. And that's a bill that vests certain development standards and fees. It was intended to sort of expedite and speed up the review process. Something that came out just while this project was being reviewed last summer was the Assembly Bill 130, another housing law, which changed the environmental review process for certain housing projects. The intention behind that was to expedite the review process. And then finally, AB 2097 is a state law that prohibits parking minimums for projects that are within a certain distance of a major transit station, which this project's within that distance. As I mentioned earlier, the general plan limits the density to 99 units per acre. State law allows or mandates increases to that density, and this project qualifies. So because of the provision of very low income units, the project's entitled to a bonus of 50%. So they could have 50% more units than the city contemplated by complying with state law. And to implement that bonus, there's an unlimited number of waivers. And waivers are changes to development standards or relaxation of certain things. And this project has a number of specific things that it didn't comply with under the city's rules, but because of state law, they could request a waiver and not adhere to those standards. And that's all based on providing 19 very low income units. Revisiting the Housing Accountability Act. The reason I'm doing that is it's the main foundation for considering this appeal. And it was also the main foundation for the Planning Commission to consider the project. And I mentioned this earlier, but I'm just going to say it again, that it limits the city's ability to deny, reduce the density of, or render a project infeasible. And the HA applies to a project if it has a density bonus or not. So the fact that it has waivers doesn't mean that it's not eligible. If a housing development project complies with these objective standards, then the local agency can only disapprove a project or require that it be developed at a lower density where it makes findings that the project would have a specific adverse impact on public health or safety, and that there is no feasible method to satisfactorily mitigate or avoid that impact. There's a theme here. Once again, we're talking about the Housing Accountability Act. The Planning Commission found that the project was consistent with the local objective standards. That's why they approved the project. When considering the appeal, the council must consider if any appeal point would trigger a specific adverse impact. And if it does, then that there's no feasible alternative to avoid that impact. There's no evidence to support a finding of specific adverse impact for this project. And finally, if an appeal point is not related to an objective standard and no specific adverse impact would occur, the council must dismiss that appeal point. So now I'm going to move on to the appeal. And the appeal is also covered on pages 4 through 6 of the agenda report. I'm doing a very kind of high-level review, happy to answer questions or elaborate. The first appeal point is that the notice, and this is the notice for the Planning Commission, was inadequate, and that the project entitlements were not disclosed or included. Staff reviewed the San Mateo Municipal Code to prepare the notice, and the notice was consistent with what was required by the local regulation in the Muni Code and state law. The second appeal point is that the 73-page transportation study was not made available until midday Monday, March 23rd. That's correct. When staff learned of this omission, the agenda report was corrected, the LTA was provided, and also provided to the appellant. And this was all done in advance of the Planning Commission meeting. The third point, and this is a few words to summarize a larger statement, but the gist is the staff report provided limited data and analysis of neighborhood concerns. And in advance of presenting this project to the Planning Commission, the city was carefully reviewed the project with the Development Review Board. And that included looking at state and local regulations to confirm that the project was deemed complete, that it was consistent or not with local regulations, and then create all of the conditions of approval that were provided. The Planning Commission approved that project after finding it complied with these standards. Appeal point 4 is that CEQA requires that the city add a condition requiring a phase 1 environmental assessment, but none was done. State law says that. It's correct. However, it wasn't needed to make it a condition of approval because the applicant provided the phase 1 site assessment that was required by the city. And in fact, the phase 2 was also done because there was some additional study identified in the phase 1 report. Appeal point number 5, the conditions should be amended to provide opportunity for city staff and residents to meet and review and provide input. The conditions of approval that were adopted for this project were carefully crafted by the DRB, and they represent the objective standards adopted by the city, and they're consistent with those applied to other similar projects. Like similar projects, for example, for construction impacts, the city placed a condition of approval on this project to require a construction management plan that's prepared in accordance with the city's construction management plan requirements. These conditions will ensure that there's limited detriment and that the project can proceed without causing undue stress and harm to the neighbors. Appeal point number 6. The appeal asks that the garage entry, which is proposed to be located on Villa Terrace, be moved to instead direct cars to and from North San Mateo Drive. Relocating the driveway as requested is impossible because the Muni Code prohibits new driveways on arterial streets, and North San Mateo Drive is designated as a minor arterial. Appeal point number 7. The Muni Code prohibits in this district recreation areas and garbage operations when they're not fully enclosed in a building. This is incorrect. The provision that requires things to be enclosed applies to the permitted uses, and the permitted uses here is the residential use and not to open space or the movement or temporary staging for solid waste before Recology picks it up. So the project complies with this. The Muni Code is to that point. The recommendation is to adopt a resolution to deny the appeal and uphold the Planning Commission's decision to approve a site plan and architectural review, a site development planning application, a vesting tentative map, and to allow the construction of a new 6-story multifamily residential building with 181 dwelling units and associated site improvements at 715, 723 North San Mateo Drive, and find that the project is exempt from further review under the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Public Resources Code section 21080.66 and the findings for approval and subject to the conditions of approval. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, and I'll take this opportunity to just share the remainder of sort of the outline of how we will continue during this public hearing. We had a presentation from staff just now. We will now give 15 minutes to the appellant to give a presentation if one is wished to be presented, and then the applicant of the development can give a presentation up to 15 minutes. Then we'll open it up for any public comment. And after public comment, we can have a 5-minute rebuttal each for the appellant and for the applicant. We can go back to staff for clarification and then bring it back to the dais for questions, comments, and potentially a motion from council. So thank you for bearing with us as we go through this order. And the next in the order would be the appellant and a presentation from Mr. Steve Carlson.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. I don't take lightly all the comments that I wrote to you. I know I wrote something like 45 pages. It took a lot of research. I haven't done it for an awful long time. We must be reading the wrong codes or different codes, because I have a completely different interpretation of what your codes are about. This is a major project. There's nothing like it in our neighborhood, the closest being 888 North San Mateo Drive, which was completed 2015. That actually started out as a 5-story project, and the commission at the time was able to negotiate it to 4-story, and it works pretty well for where it's located. The project is not compliant with the general plan, and there are numerous provisions that I had documented in the material I submitted to you. The San Mateo Municipal Code, including Title 27, it is not compliant with a couple of objective design standards, including the on-street garbage operation and other federal and state laws and regulations, notably the Clean Water Act. The factual basis of findings for the SPAR, with the parcel map, the variances, the site development permit, are not established by fact either in the staff report nor the commission hearing. It's based, in my assessment, on assumption, conjecture, and speculation. There are numerous statements that are completely inaccurate. The documentation and analysis is lacking. Both the transportation study and the shading study were incomplete and inadequate, and they didn't even meet city standards. Several other studies that would have shed light on the safety issues, which I'll get into in a moment, were not included. The conditions of approval I still hold are not adequate to protect the public safety, as they are not adequate and do not provide a public feedback loop to include the public, since they've been since they haven't been allowed to participate in a lot of the information that's presented. The neighborhood concerns made at the applicant's neighborhood meeting, February 25th, have not been addressed, nor, well, with the exception that I think the next door neighbor did get a wall changed, the foundation wall, to protect an off-site tree that's on their property. But that was the only change, and I would note that the applicant has adamantly insisted that they couldn't change that wall, but obviously that's not the case. The general plan that it doesn't comply with housing elements, circulation, pedestrian and bicycle master plans. And I would also add to note, it ends up taking a step forward in over-concentration of low-income households in our neighborhood. We already have the only transitional housing project in our site, or in the entire city. But moving on from that, there are significant life safety impacts that will occur to both residents and pedestrians. The Villa Terrace blind intersection garage entry creates a permanent pedestrian hazard and violates one of the city's key pedestrian safety goals. State Street on-street garbage operation will present a permanent traffic conflict and hazard. The trucks are a minimum of 12 feet in width. The travel lanes in each direction are only 9.9 feet. That means if the truck arrives to pick up the steel rolling bins that are parked curbside, they have to shut down the street in order to do that. And that's immediately adjacent to an intersection with North San Mateo Drive. And there is apparently no flagman or any operation like that. I'll digress a little bit on the garbage operation, in that it's estimated from what I could research online that a project of this magnitude will generate about 36 cubic yards of trash per day. That means they are relying on the city right away on a daily basis for garbage pickup. Now, they do store some of and process some of the material in their own building. There's nothing I can find in your codes or your policies that will allow or any example where a building is using the street for part of their permanent operation. So the site description, in my opinion, should include part of the public right of way as part of an entitlement, since you're being asked in effect to restrict the site part of the street to the exclusive use of this property owner, because no one else will be able to use it since it'll be using for garbage operation. The significant impacts also include the safe routes to school, to San Mateo Park. That path is, for the most part, half of it is unimproved. It's simply dirt, and it doesn't meet either city standards, and it violates ADA standards in terms of curb ramps. That was not evaluated. Neither was the route to the transit, which this project relies on, and why it was granted by state law parking reductions. But if you're going to rely on a train station, then you got to make sure that the route to it is compliant, and there was no such assessment. And I think part of the route doesn't comply with ADA, especially near Peninsula. The project, by its close proximity to the property boundary, exposes those residences to serious life safety threats. And that's even identified to some extent in the geotechnical. There's a preliminary report where they mention that they'll have to have exceedingly steep gradients for the slope stability. And there's also the notion of dewatering, which was never discussed with the Planning Commission. And dewatering, if it's not handled correctly, can result in destabilization of neighboring properties. So that becomes a really critical safety issue. And that's the kind of thing that neighbors need to know about. And I think the commission would have needed to have known about in advance. Let me jump forward to public nuisances. It exposes residents to excessive noise, both operational and construction, significant off-site glare. The Villa Terra garage entry directly faces single-family homes. So in nighttime use or low-level light, when they come out, the cars come out with their lights, they're gonna be shining directly into the neighbor's property. And that's not allowed by your codes. There would be increased ambient lighting levels, no study was done. And then there are objectionable and toxic odors, definitely in relationship to the garbage operation on the street, which I think will have a blighting effect and will be an attractive nuisance, prompting illegal dumping, as well as creating an increased need for police activities. In terms of on-street parking, which is a long-standing issue in the neighborhood, and they've mentioned in front of numerous councils before you as well, they have not been addressed. I know the councils in the past have started to look at it and then they just dropped it and never explained it to the neighborhood why they did. But this project, through construction of drainage swales on streets, by the placement of a loading facility on street as a substitute for on-site loading, which is required by the zoning code, and there is no such variance for that. So between the drainage swales, the loading on site, and then 30-minute restricted parking, which I know is not in front of you yet, but that's just that many more stall spaces that this neighborhood, there may be 15 to 16 spaces overnight available in the entire neighborhood. This project, the visitor use alone, which they provide no visitor parking, will simply wipe that out and create a supply imbalance. In terms of adverse traffic impacts, the transportation study is incomplete and inadequate. It undercounted traffic and therefore the impacts. There was no assessment of project operations. There was no consideration of alternative transportation nodes, which I think this project will utilize, Uber, Lyft, Waymo. That has a significant amount of traffic associated together with FedEx, UPS, and other deliveries, and that should have been included as part of the transportation study. Key intersections connecting to the regional highways were not included. The only two intersections they looked at were they looked at the project entry, then they looked at Villa Terrace and North San Mateo Drive, and they looked at Villa Terrace and Highland Avenue. That's it, no connection. And the two intersections in particular have both had injury accidents in the last 60 days. So it really was incomplete. They also didn't look at the primary access route, which the traffic study or transportation study identified as Highland Avenue. That's also Bicycle Boulevard. And as yet, the city has worked with the neighborhood to come up with the specific safety measures that they want to see implemented. And I think that you would want to discourage heavier use. This is only the first building of possibly many more. And you don't want to discourage traffic traveling through local neighborhood streets. And people were concerned at the neighborhood meeting, not only Bellevue, but Highland and State Street as well. I talked a little bit about the on-street garbage operations. Again, I think it's going to have a blighting effect. I can't think of any neighborhood that has any such operation like this. This is the kind of facility that you would find in an older industrial area that doesn't have the adequate amount of space to put it on site. All of your previous projects, trucks drove into the site and picked up the garbage, and yet you're not going to do that here. It raises a whole bunch of issues on how do you maintain street safety for bicyclists, pedestrians, who's going to steam clean that every day, who's going to inspect it, and so on and so forth. As I mentioned a little bit about the inadequate lane widths, what's also interesting is that the applicant chose to use a different turning radius template for the Recology trucks. Recology trucks, in their own letter, which was not presented to the commission, said you need to use a 40-foot turning radius. The difference between, I think, the 25-foot and I think that they used, and the 40, is that the 40 requires using a portion of the oncoming lane northbound on San Mateo Drive, which is another safety traffic conflict. Ordinarily in the past, you would have required a street dedication to widen the street so that the truck could make the adequate turn. Interestingly enough, the fire department's trucks faces the same dilemma. There are also economic harms. There's energy impacts. There was no study of shading, which is required in your own application requirements, and there was no wind alteration assessment. A building of this magnitude may generate or channel wind and accelerate ground level speeds. That affects neighboring properties, driving their energy costs up during winter hours. One comment made by a commissioner was, well, I'm not concerned about that. But that's part of your obligation, is to be concerned about that. It also means a loss of an opportunity for those residents to place rooftop solar panels. That's a key state priority, and it's a requirement to be assessed, which it wasn't. The garage and foundation, I talked a little bit about that. Because it's so close to the property boundaries, California Civil Code 832 requires property owners of those affected properties to protect their own property from damaging. That also was dismissed by the commission, who simply asked the applicant, can you talk about this? And they said, no, we'll be providing slope stability. And while that's true, the owners also have to protect their own property. And so that's an economic harm to them, because they have to absorb the cost of hiring legal counsel, geotechnical consultants, and possibly contractors to stabilize their property. There's also the mention they may use a soil nailing wall. And what that requires is tie rods to be installed in neighboring properties. And while the city may allow that, they would have to have some type of legal agreement to enter into the other person's properties. Plus, that may affect what they can do in terms of development, and that's something I think the commission should have looked at. In terms of violations of local, Title 27, again, there's no on-site loading. That's a mandatory minimum requirement of 10 by 25 foot. But the applicant's proposing is an 8 by 15 foot, because part of it blocks a driveway, which they're not allowed to do under ADA. But your own codes don't even allow it the width to be reduced to 8 feet. And there is no statement that in the codes that it can be located off-site. And even though the Public Works director said it was okay with him, he has no such authority. All uses must be fully enclosed. And what that notion came from the E2 districts was because they were going to be put in close proximity to single-family neighborhoods and low-density neighborhoods. And it was to preclude nuisances. And I disagree with staff's reinterpretation of what that code means. Similarly, with the site development permit approval for grading, it makes no sense what your staff is recommending to you. It's a graduated system. It means that the smallest projects can be approved by the zoning administrator, then a larger can be approved by the commission. It clearly says that grading over 5,000 square feet and 5,000 cubic yards requires approval by the planning commission, not staff. And it does require a permit, and that's not included. The other is staff's relying on the interpretation that it's a basement, And what in the old days, basements might have been small just for water heaters and for coal or oil fired. And that's where that comes from. It didn't say anything in the code about garages, and your staff's reading into that. And I know you've approved of some other projects like that, but as far as I know, there's been no resolution from council saying this is what we all agree on. In any event, what can be done to fix it? The city could adopt a parking impact fee to provide new development to support the cost of a neighborhood parking permit program, which I think is what you're going to need in this neighborhood since you're increasing the density radically. A condition of approval could be added to restrict, prohibit on-street parking by the future project occupants. And the city could approve a neighborhood parking permit program to deal with that. But I think the transportation should have been redone. I think all the studies need to be done. I think really should remand this to the commission and direct staff to complete those studies so that at least they can define what the true effects are.
Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. We can now take a presentation from the applicant.
Good evening, Mayor Lorraine, council members, city staff. I'm Don Peterson. I represent Prometheus Real Estate Group, the applicant and owner of the property. I think it's best, we're represented by our full team here this evening, and I think they're available to answer any questions regarding the appellant's presentation. We would defer to staff, the staff presentation, the staff report, and again, we've got a battery of consultants that can address any particular questions that you have. I think what we would want to do, though, is I would invite Jeff Gibson, who's our lead architect, just give a very brief presentation highlighting the merits of the project, just given the fact that it hasn't been before you. So let me turn the floor over to Jeff. Thanks.
Sure, that sounds great. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jeff Gibson from Winder Gibson Architects. As Dawn said, I'm going to give you just like a brief tour of the project. Lots of points raised by the in the appeal. We're not going to try to address those one by one, but as Dawn said, we've got tons of different consultants available for whichever points you want to talk about. But I'll give you a little tour. If you can go to page 3. Great. So first, I'd like to position the project within the excellent work that the city and the planning department and the planning commission has been doing on long-range planning within the 2040 general plan, Measure T, your certified housing element, and the objective design standards. This is a really exciting time in San Mateo. The project is part of the smart way that the city is seeking to grow and respond to the housing crisis. Next page, thank you. We always start our multifamily projects with a site analysis combined with local code, legislative, and architectural analysis. Here we're located, between downtown San Mateo and downtown Burlingame, access to both train stations, as well as other transit, bike lanes, walkable businesses. Our site is long and thin, bounded on 3 sides by streets, including the long frontage on North San Mateo Drive. Thank you. The project Part T focuses on biophilic design, which is all about creating a sense of natural place at the core of the project. We studied prevailing winds, sunlight, and context, and it led us to a scheme with a long linear courtyard that daylights to both side streets. We then carved away some of the building mass at the southwest corner to allow all-day light at the pool area, providing a more peaceful and shaded natural experience at the courtyard. Sort of an unusual party, and kind of opens the project up to the neighborhood as well. Here are a couple of views of the courtyard spaces. The courtyard is activated by exterior walkways, bridges, and terraces. In this project, parking is fully hidden from view. It's wrapped on the ground floor by units and other amenity spaces, and then additionally placed in the basement. This was our first project utilizing San Mateo's objective design standards. I know this body had probably a big hand in working on that document. The ODS is a great document. It was invaluable to us during schematic design. It allowed us to submit a project that was already in substantial compliance with the ODS, and then to work really closely with staff on refinements and documentation outlining that conformance. Stylistically, our building is a contemporary building, but with certain material touchstones connecting with prevalent Mediterranean styles found in San Mateo. We feature creamy stucco, iron railings, 2 tones of brick, a lovely wood tone siding on the biophilic inner courtyard. Thank you. We treated the ODS as a requirement, but also as a guiding light. In many cases, in addition to providing strict objective compliance with a certain required number of points, we've also integrated other aspects of other points as well. We went through these points in detail at the Planning Commission hearing, and I'm here to speak to those if you have any specific questions about them, if you want to see your ODS in action. As intended, the ODS really helped us in creating a varied but cohesive design that you see here. Lots of variety on the street space, but also a total cohesive design. Throughout the ODS review, we did work very closely with staff and Greg when he came on board as well to ensure all points were being correctly interpreted. It's interesting how an objective design standard still requires a certain amount of interpretation. It's a new document. The corners were treated particular importance. This is great. You can just stay here. Thank you to the planning staff and the whole San Mateo team for working closely with us throughout the process. We are honored to be working on this project with Prometheus and to bring this exciting project to San Mateo. We're here to answer any questions. Thanks for your time, and hopefully the building is understandable. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for the applicant's presentation. At this time, we can open up public comment. So if you're in the chambers and you wish to give comment on this item, you may bring a request to speak slip to the city clerk. If you're online, you can raise your hand at this time.
Thank you, Mayor Lorraine. At this time, I have received 2 requests to speak. If you wish to speak on this item and have not provided me with a request to speak slip, please do so now. If you're in our virtual environment, please raise your hand. We will be calling the names of our final speakers. Seeing no additional requests, we'll have set the number of speakers at 2 speakers. We'll have 1 request to speak in chambers, 2 requests to speak in chambers. And our final speaker in our virtual environment will be Max Mottner. We'll start with our in-person request to speak, which will set the timer at 3 minutes per speaker. Our first speaker will be Cindy Skelton, followed by Jordan Grimes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you for hearing my comments this evening. My name is Cindy Skelton, and I have lived on State Street since 1996 with my family. How many cars are in your household? Does every adult in your home have a car? What about your teenage drivers? Building a housing complex with 181 dwellings is admirable. Building it without adequate parking for the residents is irresponsible. I live on State Street and rarely am I able to park in front of my own house. On garbage day, I often have to put bins at the end of the driveway because there isn't enough space on the street. Sometimes someone will move the full bins to the sidewalk so they can park, and if I don't notice, my trash won't be picked up that day. Parking on street cleaning days is particularly problematic. The newish apartments at 888 San Mateo Drive always has cars parked in front of it, and I'm assuming they don't have adequate parking for their units either. Will the residents of this new apartment complex have to sign an agreement that they will only have 1 car per unit? This proposed project is too big for our neighborhood and the space they want to occupy. I would recommend 90 dwelling units while keeping the current parking allocation. State Street, Villa Terrace, and Jefferson Court cannot handle more car parking on our streets. This project will have a specific adverse impact on the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker in chambers will be Jordan Grimes.
Good evening, council members, honorable mayor. I certainly have never been more thankful for state housing law in my life when projects like this come forward. There was a time in this city when we did not have state housing laws in place, which meant projects like this, I mean, first of all, just couldn't come forward at all. But when they did, they would routinely get downsized. They would routinely get shut down. That is obviously not the case anymore. I'm very grateful for that as a renter in the city, as someone who'd like to remain. I don't know how many of you have rented recently. That's not true. I know the answer. It's one. But rents in the city are skyrocketing. It's really not, it's not just the city. It's all over the peninsula, the South Bay of the city. As AI has exploded in growth, so have rents. Those rents don't come down unless we build more supply. This project is part of that. And I look forward to it being built. I do just want to say something in terms of parking. I live across from Station Park Green, which is a much bigger apartment complex, 600 units. Similar concerns about parking were predicted, when Station Park Green came into being. The concerns about parking apocalypses have not come to pass, and that is because people. While there are many people who, have cars and will drive, there are just as many who are looking to ditch their cars and not pay that massive expense every month. So I look forward to seeing this project come online. I look forward to new neighbors. I look forward to rents coming down, and I look forward to it passing tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Moving to our virtual environment where our final speaker will be Max. Max, please unmute your mic.
Yeah, hello. I'm Max. I'm Mountaineer. I'm a resident on Highland Ave. I'm really excited about this project. I just want to first address a comment to the construction experience that might occur with the development of this project. Currently, the Samtrans El Camino Real bus is routed on San Mateo Drive, and I'm a little worried about the conflicting timelines of the development of this project and the operations of the bus along the corridor. So I just appreciate it if the developer was mindful of the free-flowing operations of Samtrans along the route. They're every 15-minute headways on weekdays and weekends, and is part of why AB 2097 enables such a low-parked residential building. So just a quick comment about that. I also want to echo some of my neighbors' comments about the parking situation. I think that parking permit program is a really great option, and one that I know is really hard to enact. We got to collect a lot of signatures. The permits cost nothing, so the costs of operating the program aren't covered. So I appreciate the high bar for creating a new parking permit program, but I do think it would be beneficial to the community if the criteria for establishing a program included introducing a new residential building as a criteria for justifying a new parking permit program. And then lastly, I just want to note that this isn't really at all in the developer applicant's ballpark, but walking and biking safety along this corridor are not great. Accessing Burlingame Caltrain Station, which is the closest one, which is why this site qualifies for AB 2097 and no parking minimums. It requires crossing the Peninsula San Mateo Drive intersection, which is pretty pedestrian hostile. And there is no bike lane once you go north of our city's borders. And I hold some serious pessimism about Burlingame continuing the bike lanes along California past their auto row, the Putnam car dealerships. So I just want to impress our council and staff to really take a look at the pedestrian and bicycling safety in the neighborhood, knowing that this will generate more vehicle traffic. I mean, they do have 180 parking spaces, I believe. So be mindful of the increased VMT and how it harms walking and biking in the neighborhood. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Lorraine, that concludes public comment on this item.
Thank you for those who gave public comment. I'll close public comment for the item, and the next part of this outline is the opportunity to give a rebuttal from the appellant in the amount of 5 minutes. So if the appellant, Mr. Carlson, would like to share any more based on what has transpired.
Well, I would like to make a minor correction. Actually, I think the commission record was 3-0. They were missing one person, and I was really kind of concerned that a major project like that would come forward. If that's, I stand corrected. That was on the other item that I was going to talk to you earlier. That was on the zoning, so I apologize for that. The plan, though, however, does say 4 to 6 stories, and most of the residents that were at that meeting that I was way back in the early day said 4 stories would be fine. It's the 6 stories that got to be a problem. And I realize that state law prohibits us from talking about that stuff. But just to let you know, there's no way in the world that anybody found that project to be complementary to the neighborhood, to reflect anything. What you saw, you noticed it in their presentation. They didn't show you what the neighborhood looked like. They simply showed you the building because from our perspective, I think, if I can speak for some people that were at that meeting, it really was designed in a vacuum. If they did come at it, then they just looked at how can we maximize this thing. My real concern is that they really need to move the garage entry. If they can at least do that, put it on North San Mateo Drive. It has much better sight line, much better access, keeps the traffic out traveling through the local streets, keeps it off of Highland. Villa Terrace is only a 1-block street in that side of the town. And it's just going to really, I think people are going to find out you can't maneuver through North San Mateo Drive at times. So they're going to learn pretty quickly that you go through the neighborhood to get to wherever you need to go. So that's kind of a concern. Other than that, I think I've touched on the things. The one thing I didn't get to talk about briefly was the Clean Water Act. I don't think placing garbage bins for long periods of time complies with the National Pollution Discharge Elimination Systems permit that we have. And there was no documentation presented that this complies with that. You can't dump pollutants and have it flow into the city's storm drainage system. We're responsible for keeping that out of the Bay water. And this kind of an operation is going to potentially do that when they lift those things up, because those things always leak and they're not weatherproof. They're supposed to be undercover. So that's my concern with regard to that. Other than that, I think I do support what a lot of people said is it's the addition of housing is welcome. The neighborhood experienced during the 1960s, it was a single family neighborhood. And for whatever reason, through city council land use changes, it changed. About 50% of all the single family homes changed to small apartment buildings. So we have done our fair share. The city is now asking our neighborhood to do even more than what most other low density neighborhoods have done in the city at all. And that is a concern. But aside from that, there was also no documentation provided about the on-street drainage swales that are being expanded and wiping out parking on our streets on both State and Villa Terrace. And it's not clear to me that those are required by the city or that they're mandatory. But what's important is as they treat their water, they're piping it into those areas. And I don't know that that's a secondary treatment. Treatment has to occur on site. That's part of the requirement. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. And now we can give 5 minutes to the applicant for a rebuttal.
Good evening. I'm Jonathan Stone with Prometheus. We wanted to hit on a couple items and happy to discuss any further with any more questions that might come up after the back and forth. With regards to construction, there were a number of questions or points that were brought up tonight. The construction management plan that's been referenced is something that we'll be doing. Obviously, it's in line with about, I think, 20 of the conditions of approval that are associated with the project. We're very familiar with this, not only in San Mateo, but in other municipalities and projects that we work on as reference. One of the recent projects completed in downtown that we worked on had a construction management plan that was over 200 pages. So it takes a lot of coordination with the city after the approval of the project, which is where we are tonight. So assuming we move forward, we'll get into that level of detail and create what is ultimately about 10 or 15 different chapters that make up the construction management plan. So that's ahead of us, but it will be in line with all the standards of the city's various departments. Another item that was brought up was trash collection. That was worked on at length with both Public Works, the turning radiuses of the trucks, fire trucks, trash trucks, all trucks were analyzed by numerous different departments. With regards to the operations and the collections of the trash is collected inside and stored inside the building. So it comes down chutes. We have a trash room inside the garage that's collected there. Those are pulled out on collection days by our staff. And then the front loading trucks that are with Recology come, stab those, pick them up and put them back down. And our staff comes out and brings them back in. So that entire window of collection on a given collection day happens rather efficiently. And we have a long-standing history with Recology and on our other projects where this is a choreographed effort. So at this stage of a project, we have a design that's in place that Public Works and the city has agreed to. That is then shared with Recology. Recology blesses it based on all of the work that they do within the community and city in this particular neighborhood. And then as we get further into the project, getting closer to construction drawings and building permit issuance, there's another report that comes out that further looks at the specifics of those collection areas to make sure they're in line with building permit and all other various codes. And then we come to the practical, once we deliver the building and it's built, then there's an operational study with all parties that makes sure that it actually works. So all those steps will be followed here. So just wanted to provide some greater context on exactly how that process happens. And then parking, we're parked at a 1-to-1 roughly ratio. So 180 spaces for the 181 units. And one of the things we wanted to convey was there's a lot that goes into the analysis. As mentioned, AB 2097, which you could have no parking for a project such as this. We don't want to do that, but we don't want to overpark either. Based on our portfolio of over about 13,000 units, for projects that are in close proximity to transit, which this is within a half mile, this parking usage ratio is what we see as standard for our projects, and so we've applied it here. So with that, I'll end, and if there's any questions, we're more than happy to address them.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We can now turn back to staff to see if they have any points of clarification they'd like to add. Okay. Hearing none, I will bring it back to the dais and just ask my fellow council members if they have questions or comments. Me? Sure. Councilmember Diaz-Nash, please feel free.
Okay, we're learning how to speak to each other in the dais. Thank you very much. Thank you to staff. Thank you to the appellant. Thank you to Prometheus. Thank you to the Planning Commission. Thank you to all the neighbors. This is a long project. My concerns or questions are more about, and I guess maybe Prometheus would be the best to deal with them. How do you specifically address concerns about Villa Terrace and the fact that it is narrow? I know that the state we cannot put anything on San Mateo Drive, so that was one of the requests, and that's not possible. But how do we deal with the concerns?
Specific to the location of the garage entry?
Yeah. Yeah.
So with the three frontages that the project has, San Mateo Drive is taken off the table for consideration based on city code. That leaves two other frontages, the longer of which is Villa Terrace rather than State Street. And so that became, due to backup entry, queuing from a vehicular mobility standpoint, that became the best alternative. And then once that was determined, it was how do we make that the best possible design that it could be from a garage entry standpoint. There's queuing within where the driveway apron is to the point where the garage actually opens, where the gate is, that allows for queuing to occur. So all that's baked into the design. It was also a recommendation by Hexagon and within the traffic report for the project. that will stay in place, obviously. So that's how that's crafted, based on city code and engineering and architectural design composition.
Oh, thank you. And during construction, I'm sure one of the points of the construction management plan is how to deal with the neighbors and people around. And could you please talk about that?
Sure. One of the points in the construction management plan is a point of contact for everything, frankly, and that will be posted in the document itself, which will be public. It will be posted on signs, on the construction fence. The Prometheus offices, as I think most people know, affiliated with the project, is right in downtown, which is not very far. It's 0.62 miles from the project site. We're always here. My contact information is in all of these materials, as is most of the team that's with me here. So we will be available for comments and any coordination issues specific to whatever a given issue or topic that may come up will be coordinated between, obviously, us, the applicant, as well as the city, to make sure all points of communication are known and addressed.
Yeah, because that's always a pain point, no matter what the project, but I would strongly encourage everyone involved to be extra sensitive to that and responsive. I know one of the virtual commenters talked about being more sensitive to pedestrian and bike safety, given the increased population, increased number of cars. I was wondering if you could speak to that.
Sure. With regards to the project is implementing the bike lane frontage along San Mateo Drive as part of the bike master plan, but that also comes with, let's call it, a composition of the streetscape cross section. So from the street drive aisles through the bike lane, through the parking, incorporating the width of the expanded new sidewalks, planting street trees that are being accommodated. So all that's baked into a composition design that will enhance pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicular transportation throughout this portion of the city. Obviously, as the area continues to have further investment within it, those street improvements will continue along that same connection points, but we will be certainly building out that portion of it and be implementing the guidelines the city's been looking for and has informed the project of, which are in the plan set.
Great, thank you. And I see Director Fabry in the back of the room, head of our Public Works. My question, and you've heard it from me 1,000 times, is how does the city plan to deal with, this will be one project, there will be other projects, each project will have its own construction management and transportation plan, but can you speak a little bit about the holistic view from the city's perspective to make sure as we grow and there are other projects that we are taking everything into consideration together and not project by project?
So I'll let our community development director kick it off while Director Fabry comes up.
Great, thank you very much.
Hello, Zach Dahl, Community Development Director. Yes, we're definitely working on that. The city already has very robust requirements when it comes to construction management, looking at all aspects of a project from noise to dust, construction traffic, construction worker parking, staging. As was noted by the applicant, we have very robust requirements. And so I think really the key here as we move forward with through entitlement and then into construction, especially as you get areas that might see multiple construction projects, coordination is key. We are actively working on that. There is a council subcommittee that'll be coordinating with staff and we'll be sharing our updates as well. But we do have a multi-departmental team between community development, which is planning and building, as well as our public works team, dedicated staff as necessary to kind of help facilitate. And then we could also, as necessary, include police if there's certain issues there. So we're really focused on how we can help navigate through these, minimize impact to the degree that we can, and make sure we're responsive to addressing issues throughout the process. So it's definitely something on staff's radar and something we'll be working closely on as we move past entitlement and into permitting and actual construction, which is really where we'll be seeing those impacts and need to highly manage and stay focused.
Thank you very much, Director Dahl. And maybe Director Faber, you can speak to the the traffic safety aspect of all that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to be working closely with Community Development Department as we develop this plan in terms of how we're going to manage all these different projects that could be happening simultaneously in terms of what we need to be looking at in terms of traffic safety. So some of it's going to depend on the timing of when individual projects develop. We may see the influx of applications now, but when it comes to actual construction, we're going to have to see what happens with the finance environment and whatnot in terms of when these go forward. As to whether they're all going to be happening at the same time, we'll be working closely with our partners in community development to figure out what the plan is to make sure that we're requiring things that ensure that there's transportation safety as these projects go forward.
Great. I thank you, and that will be an ongoing concern.
Yes.
To both of you, thank you very much. And just finally, I would love to say that I really appreciate the design. I think this is really quite an open, spacious design, and it looks like it could be a very livable place. And I look forward to seeing it come to life. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Fernandez.
To echo my colleague, Councilmember Diaz-Nash, I just want to thank appellant and staff and for making themselves available on this very important topic. This proposed design is in my district. I live 2 blocks away. So a lot of the discussion really hits home for me. And so I just had a question, I think probably for the Public Works Director, but maybe Community Development Director Dahl. There was a lot of discussion around people movement around the site on North San Mateo Drive. And we are going to be closing Villa Terrace because of the proposed quiet zone at the tracks. Does this affect at all how we are going to be moving people around this area?
I mean, I believe I'll defer to my staff as well that's over there in terms of the transportation analysis, but I think we've taken into account the closure of the rail crossing as part of the analysis that went into this project. But I defer to staff.
Yeah, I can speak. Hi, I'm John from Public Works Assistant Engineer with Land Development. At the time that this project performed the scoping and the LTA, the local transportation analysis, the rail QZ closure wasn't approved at the time yet. So it wasn't facilitated with this, incorporated into this LTA, because at the time it wasn't approved and we wanted to keep the LTA on existing conditions.
Will it be taken into future or updated versions of the LTA? Is there a future version of the LTA that would take this into consideration? No is an okay answer. I just am wondering if
Typically the LTA is reviewed during the planning application.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. So that's the only question I had. And, as someone who lives, again, 2 blocks away from the proposed site, there was little talk about how it doesn't quite match the character of the neighborhood, but I think it kind of does in the fact that the 888 project is very similar to what's being proposed. It's a very compelling project, and I appreciate the very hearty discussion that occurred today.
Thank you. Councilmember Newsom?
Sure, through the mayor. Gosh, who do I address this question to? I think this is a question for the applicant themselves. So who would, thank you. Just trying to address some of the concerns that the neighbors have. Obviously, it seems as though this project is in scope with what is allowed. But there's still concerns obviously around parking, and a big thing we heard about was on-street garbage. You've addressed quite a bit of that. I was just curious, it's 182 parking spaces for 181 dwellings. So
180 and 181, 180 parking spaces and 181 units.
Well, our website needs to be updated then, because we have 182 on the website with 181 units. So, okay.
Roughly 1 to 1.
Okay, 1 to 1. How is it that you're going to be managing that? So does every resident automatically get 1 parking space?
They're unbundled.
So you'll charge a parking fee per.
Correct.
And it's first come, first serve, is
Those
there a right of
or
first
more.
refusal?
So in as I was somewhat alluding to earlier with regards to the parking ratio and how that makes up what we put forward. In projects that are in, again, proximity to transit in the half-mile radius where we sit, that user ratio within our portfolio, and we have quite a few of, not the entirety of our portfolio, that sits within that proximity, so that the data set is extremely helpful for us to plan out what we should be parking towards. Some, as we've mentioned, the metropolitan apartments in downtown San Mateo are very overparked, but they were parked at a parking ratio from several decades ago, just as a for instance. But what we're seeing based on usage is the one-to-one ratio is very representative of this proximity. And that's inclusive of behaviors of the different unit types. But on the average, that's what the usage comes out to. So there will be some folks, a number of folks that have no parking and no cars whatsoever. They'll use public transit, they'll use rideshare, bicycles. We have quite a few bicycles parking spaces throughout the project. And there will be some folks that want more spaces and they will pay for an additional space. But on the average, that ratio is what we see and why we have targeted what we've put forward.
Okay, and then of the BMR units, how many BMR units?
There's 19.
So every BMR unit is given one parking space?
Typically, and I think we'll be following the city's procedures on parking.
Right, which means that those BMRs do not get charged a parking space fee.
I believe that's correct. I don't have that in front of me at this moment. I'll defer to staff on that.
And then how many bedrooms in total?
How many bedrooms in the entire project?
Yeah.
No, we have that. I know. Don't have it.
I've tried to find it, but
yeah. Well, hold on. Do you happen to have that? Can you? Yeah. Do you have another question? We can come back on that. We have that. Yes.
I just, as a general rule, I know that this is going to be a transit-orientated development, but I always try to push people to try to have a vehicle parking space.
It does sit in the plan set. If you give us a moment, we have that. We just don't have it in front of us. Do you have another question in the meantime while we're finding it?
I mean, just other than that, I mean, you mentioned how your garbage process works.
Yep.
You put them out the morning of, or the evening before the pickup.
Mm-hmm.
And you remove them promptly after the pickup time?
It's within usually a 45-minute window. So the drivers of the trucks they're on a route throughout the city, and that route is usually always the same.
Yeah.
If there's traffic or an accident on that route, it may set it off and ripple back. But for the most part, it's extremely consistent. So our staff on site brings those materials out, or the bins, pulls them out, and staggers them with a gap in between them and at a very specific angle so that the driver comes and stabs and puts them back and we pull them back in. So it literally is a choreography that's planned out. And anyway, we do that numerous times.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And sort of to clarify something that was mentioned about the trash before, the trash isn't stored on street.
Correct.
Trash is brought out to street, just like
Right.
everybody
Stored
brings their
on
trash
site.
cans out to
Yeah.
the street.
Yeah, we have.
Right, we're not like occupying them.
Yes.
Yeah. Total bedroom count is 241 in the building.
Wow.
Yeah. So
All
it's,
right.
it's
and
about.
then, I guess what would be the
36%.
contingency plan if you get to hopefully 95% capacity and find that it's underparked and you need more spaces? What's the plan B? How do you address that?
It's a good question. I think given the number of one bedrooms and studios in the project, the behavior that we see of those users is such that
shouldn't be a concern.
It's very low within those users.
Okay.
So we don't believe it will get to that point.
And then the last thing was, as far as Uber, Lyft, Amazon, FedEx, UPS deliveries, will there be a designated delivery space, during business hours where they can park?
There are 3 curb cuts on all sides of the buildings where that can take place, also for loading purposes. So if there are move-ins taking place, that's what those have been designed for.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, I appreciate a number of questions from my colleagues. I have a little I can add. We have heard a lot about parking and about alternative transportation. being used by those who would live in this new development. I did have a question for the applicant about this. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about your transportation demand management measures that you plan to include along in this development.
Yes, I don't have the list in front of me at the moment. They were vetted out among staff. We have, I think, transportation passes that are part of it. There's certainly an oversupply of bicycle parking, both internal to the building. I think we exceed the ratio on at least a 2-to-1 ratio of what's required. There's EV parking within the building that is scheduled, both delivered the day one plus future plumbing, so that more of the actual chargers can be installed. And I think it's 36 or 40 on day one, with another 150 making up the remainder that are plumbed for and can be installed or scaled up as usage is determined, which is sort of how the code is written. So we'll be adhering to that. The others are escaping me, but those are, I think, the large part of what makes up the TDM point profile.
Staff has, we'll go to our Public Works. I think he has a list.
Yeah, I have the TDM checklist in front of me, and there's a few required measures that they're required to meet, and it's orientation, education, promotional programs. Well, the CCAG TDM has a description of all the measures, but they do meet all the required measures. And in addition to the required measures, they are adding a few additional recommended to meet their trip reduction target, which is 25%. And as Jonathan was mentioning, is the delivery amenities. And they do get trip reduction for reduced parking as it stands on the checklist measures. But yeah, if you want more details on the required measures, I can go into that too. But some of them are like secured bike storage on site, and how the project incorporates the pedestrian master plan, how it's compliant with it. They get credit for that as well. Things like that. So.
Yes, thank you. I think that's a good enough summary. I appreciate that. And I guess I'll try a slightly different garbage question, because we heard a bit about garbage, and we've learned a bit more about how the process will go. I think I just wanted to ask staff, because we heard about the plan, if you will, and how it will typically go. In your assessment with other developments we've seen, is this abnormal? And any thoughts on like whether this is a unique situation with this property?
No, it is pretty common, and it's what a lot of the development projects are proposing, to utilize a trash staging within the right-of-way. And we are often seeing it being combined with the commercial loading zone, and we condition the project to incorporate signage to help coordinate the trash staging pickup times, collection times. And so it is very common. It's not unique.
Thank you. We have existing properties that have a similar plan.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know off the top of my head right now, but I can find some examples and send them your way.
I appreciate it. Thank you for this. And I appreciate your trying to field my questions in real time. Those are, I think, my main questions. I think I'm just going to share a few thoughts in addition. And then at that time, I'll ask if anyone else has anything else they'd like to add, or we can proceed with the process. But I did want to thank those who gave public comment, either at this meeting or at the Planning Commission meeting before it, or at the neighborhood meeting before that, online or through email to council. And of course, the appellant shared quite a number of points and concerns. So we heard a lot tonight. I heard quite a bit that this development is not a fit with the current neighborhood. Concerns about how the garbage is going to work, that some studies were either not included or not included to satisfaction, perhaps, and that there are other environmental concerns, perhaps within the neighborhood, that need to be taken into consideration with such projects. That there's already parking issues. That there's already dense housing in the vicinity. And of course, that it'd be great to have more parking, just in general. But I also heard from staff near the beginning of our presentation on this item tonight, something very specific related to state law, which was that consideration of this appeal is guided by the Housing Accountability Act, and review of each appeal point must be based on the objective standards that apply to this project. And for any appeal point that's not supported by an objective standard, the council must consider if a specific adverse impact would occur, and if no feasible alternative exists to avoid the adverse impact. If an appeal point is not related to an objective standard and no specific adverse impact would occur, the council must dismiss the appeal point. And on top of this, and the state laws that you may have seen in the presentation and have been discussed in this meeting and others, I also heard from staff today mentioning that there's a multi-departmental effort to mitigate the impacts of construction from developments that we're seeing in our city today. And we heard about some transportation, demand management, and mitigation measures that are going to be part of this project, that there's going to be improvements made to the pedestrianscape. And to me, I think one takeaway I got from that is city staff and this applicant are interested in making this work. But it's not going to necessarily work the way it used to work in San Mateo. And we understand that. I understand that. And yet, of course, there is interest from the public through the general plan process that we adopted in 2024 to acknowledge that, but continue forward in changing parts of our city to allow for more housing and more neighbors in a more dense, transit-oriented environment. That is, I feel, the connection between state laws that prohibit us from denying this project, prohibit us from asking for it to be reduced in size and scope, asking for more parking when a state law prohibits us from doing so, and the city's understanding that when we are asked by the state to make more room for housing, that we must do this to comply while making it work as best as possible. And so I think I just want to share that I feel optimistic that this could be a development that provides a benefit to today's San Mateans and future San Mateans, right? Those who are coming in, who might be able to live and work here going forward. They may have fewer cars overall, and they may be able to adopt and try new strategies. When we hear about unbundled parking, for example, that is one way that we might be able to help make this work, because some people may decide not to bring a car for an economic trade-off, in that they don't have to pay for the car or the parking fee that might go with this development, while others may be able to get more than one parking space as a result. So it's my hope that programs like that, along with what we have in our general plan and what the city's departments are willing to work together on to make this work make me feel that this does not necessarily show an adverse impact beyond a shadow of a doubt related to state law. And for that reason, I'm going to be supporting the project tonight and denying the appeal or voting for that. So I appreciate your patience with me as I talked through that, and just want to ask if anyone else has anything else they'd like to add. Okay, in that case, I'll entertain a motion. And perhaps I can ask staff if they could please bring up the screen with all that would be considered in a motion made by a council member tonight. Thank you very much.
May I?
Yes.
I move to adopt a resolution to deny the appeal and uphold the Planning Commission's decision to approve a site plan and architectural review, a site development planning application, and a vesting tentative parcel map for the construction of a new 6-story multifamily residential building with 181 dwelling units and associated site improvements at 715 and 723 North San Mateo Drive, and find that the project is exempt from further review under CEQA pursuant to Public Resources Code 21080.66 based on the findings for approval and subject to the conditions of the approval.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. City Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Deputy Mayor Fernandez?
Yes.
Councilmember Diaz-Nash?
Yes.
Councilmember Newsom?
Yes.
And Mayor Lorraine?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes item number 21. We'll move on to item number 22. But please pardon us, we'd like to take a short recess before item 22. Sorry. 9:35, I heard. Okay, 5 minutes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your patience. We have returned and are now ready to take the next item, which is item 22, November 3rd, 2026 election. Consideration of placing a quarter-cent transactions in use or sales tax measure on the ballot. Ordinance introduction. We have with us Zach Rada, Senior Management Analyst, and Rochelle Lewis, a Senior Client Services Manager with Team Civics. Thank you and good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. Thank you. My name is Zach Rada, Senior Management Analyst with the City Manager's Office, and I'm joined alongside Rochelle Lewis, Senior Client Services Manager with Team Civics. We also have Dr. Tim McClarney online. He will not be presenting, but he's available for questions. And we're here tonight to provide a presentation on the consideration of placing a quarter-cent sales tax measure on the November ballot. So the agenda for this presentation tonight is beginning with a fiscal outlook. Then we'll go through the key milestones that have led to tonight's meeting. I'll provide some information about the quarter-cent sales tax and a comparison with other jurisdictions nearby. Go into the community outreach that has been done. And then Rochelle will provide a review of the ballot measure development process, and we'll finish off with council action. So fiscal outlook, this slide may be familiar to you. This was presented in April by our finance team at the City Council meeting where we previewed the fiscal year 2026-27 budget. It shows a 10-year forecast of the general fund, and we're seeing this structural deficit where the revenue from year to year does not meet the total expenditures. And so because of this, we're facing this structural deficit, and we've created this financial sustainability plan that we've been working on for the last year or so. It includes expenditure controls, so that includes some belt tightening. So we've saved about $1.5 million in benefits and $1.5 million in frozen positions for this current fiscal year to reduce our expenditures. We've also worked on some revenue enhancements, which includes the potential sales tax measure, which we're bringing here tonight. From a cost recovery standpoint, we have our Parks and Recreation Department, and they've adopted a revised cost recovery model to enhance the cost recovery where possible. Our Finance Department is soliciting proposals for a consultant to conduct a new citywide cost allocation plan. From a grant standpoint, our grants team has been able to receive approval for some major grant funding for some of our most important projects here in San Mateo. And then from an economic development standpoint, we've adopted a 2026 through 2029 economic development work plan. And we're also looking at a new billboard policy to potentially bring some revenue to San Mateo for some billboards. So transitioning to key milestones, last summer and summer of 2025, very similar to the budget process this time, we adopted a budget with a $12 million deficit, which ended up increasing to $14 million after we got the actuals on the VLF funds that we would receive from the state. And we also had a presentation on the general fund 10-year forecast, which pointed to the same structural deficit that we saw this year. And because of all this, in August of 2025, Council directed staff to explore a potential revenue measure. At that time, we narrowed it down to a sales tax or general obligation bond. We did some polling in the fall and winter of 2025, and in January of 2026, we brought the first survey results to the council and presented them, and it showed a majority support for the sales tax measure. And at this point, council directed staff to continue exploring this potential sales tax measure. And that led to our June meeting about a month ago on June 15th, where we presented on the follow-up survey results, which also showed a majority support for the sales tax measure. And at that time, council expressed support for placing the measure on the ballot. And ever since we got direction from council in January, we put out a strong effort to educate and inform the community about this potential measure. So here are the tax rates across local cities in San Mateo County. You can see that San Mateo is in that green bucket in the middle at the 9.625%. And you can see that a lot of cities that we tend to compare ourselves to within the county are in that 9.875% bucket. And that leads us to our proposed updated tax rate, taking our sales tax rate here in San Mateo from 9.625, and if approved today by council and approved by the voters in November, it would raise up to 9.875%. And from a consumer standpoint, that's about 25 cents additional spent for every $100 spent. And it does not apply to groceries or prescription medications. So you'd basically be paying 25 cents more for every $100 you spend. From a city standpoint, a quarter-cent increase would equate to about $7 million in estimated revenue annually. And funds would remain in San Mateo and can only be used for San Mateo services. They'd just really stay within our borders, and it can help maintain our essential city services. From a transparency and accountability standpoint, if approved by voters, there would be an independent annual audits and public reporting, and an independent resident oversight committee. The community engagement efforts to date include 2 statistically reliable surveys, 3 informational mailers sent to over 31,000 households. You may have received one in the last 10 days or so, notifying the community about this meeting and council's pending decision on this topic. In addition to the 5 district meetings that City Manager Kojikian presented at, we've had more than 30 additional presentations and Q&A sessions all throughout the community, talking to stakeholders and community groups, hearing from them as well. And in addition, we have a dedicated bilingual informational webpage at cityofsanmateo.org/ballot measure. And overall, thousands of residents have been contacted and engaged throughout this process from February through today. I'll pass it over to Rochelle.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Pleasure to be with you tonight. This slide may look familiar. Team Civic's founding partner, Barry Barnes, presented it similarly to you at your June 15th meeting. And Barry, sorry he couldn't join us here tonight due to a recent loss in his family. But I won't revisit that presentation in detail, obviously, but I'd just like to briefly walk through where we are in the process, because tonight we're really at the final step. So the first step was, Zach ran through the specifics of testing the measure through polling, great detailed presentations from Dr. McClarney to understand residents' feel about their priorities for the city, about a potential tax measure, and about the quality of life in the city. Phase 2 is really all about sharing information and listening. And as Zach described, the city and you as council members have done a tremendous amount of community outreach to stakeholders and community members to hear concerns and answer questions and gather feedback. And finally, here we are this evening with a well-researched proposal. The measure proposed and the 75-word question really do reflect what we learned in all of that research and the priorities of your residents and what you would be targeting for funding for those revenues should they approve it. So at this point, the city has really done everything within its purview and everything that it can do as a public agency in educating the public about the city's financial circumstances, explaining the proposal, listening to feedback, and formulating a proposal tonight that should you place it on the ballot, obviously the residents would have the final say and the final decision. One final piece for the city in this last phase is the option to craft a ballot argument, a 300-word document to appear in the voter guide, which is mailed to every voter household. And the deadline for that would be August 11th, should the City Council place this on the ballot and decide to take that option to craft that. Next slide. So what is left, really, once the measure is on the ballot, what the city can do from there is largely to be responsive to requests for information. You can certainly maintain information, neutral information on your webpage, and respond to public inquiries with neutral non-advocacy information. But in terms of any kind of advocacy effort, that would have to be done separately by a privately funded committee. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Zach.
Thank you, Rochelle. So here we have our proposed ballot question, which we polled the community on, surveyed the community on, and it reads, in both of those surveys, we saw over 50% approval of or support for this proposed ballot question, and it reads, to provide funding for San Mateo city services such as keeping local streets, sidewalks, parks, infrastructure, and community facilities safe, clean and well-maintained, fixing potholes, providing fire protection, paramedic, crime prevention, and 911 emergency response, and improvements to traffic safety, traffic management, shall the City of San Mateo's ordinance establishing a 1/4 cent sales tax be adopted, providing $7 million annually for general government use until ended by voters, with independent audits and all funds locally controlled. So last slide, the staff recommendation tonight is to adopt a resolution ordering and calling for an election to be consolidated with the general municipal election to be held on November 3rd, 2026, submitting to the voters a measure to increase the transaction and use sales tax by an additional 1/4 cent, appropriate $158,000 for related election costs, authorize 2 members of the City Council to submit ballot arguments in favor of the measure, and introduce an ordinance establishing San Mateo Municipal Code, Chapter 3.51. And if approved by a majority of San Mateo voters in November, the ordinance would amend the San Mateo Municipal Code by establishing an additional 1/4 cent sales tax. Under state law, submitting the measure to the voters must be approved by a 2/3 vote of the City Council. So with a 5-member council, this means that 4 votes in favor are required to place the proposed measure on the ballot. And lastly, the city clerk must submit the certified resolution to the San Mateo County Elections Office no later than August 7th, 2026. Because there are no additional regular city council meetings scheduled before that deadline, the city council must take action at this meeting if it wishes to place the measure on the November 2026 ballot. With that, that concludes my presentation, and I'll pass it back to you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much for that presentation. I will now pass it to the public for comment if they have any. If you're in chambers, you may give a request to speak slip. If you're on the phone or online, you may raise your hand at this time. City Clerk, please feel free to tally public comment.
Mayor Lorraine confirming we have no requests to speak in chambers, and I have no hands raised in our virtual environment.
Okay, then I will close public comment for this item and bring it back to the dais and see if my fellow council members have any questions. Yes, Councilmember Diaz-Nash.
Thank you through the mayor. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Rochelle. And thank you to all the teams that put a lot of work into this. A couple of questions in terms, I guess, for Zach. How much of our structural gap will this, if this is adopted tonight to be put on the ballot, and if the voters pass it, how much of the gap will this cover?
So we have we're estimating that it's about $7 million annually in revenue. And I think it would help maintain our essential city services, but whether or not it would cover everything is kind of to be determined.
So I can jump in on that. So what we're looking at is currently we have a $12.8 million deficit. That's what we're looking at. And we still see double-digit deficits moving forward. The $7 million will go a long way, but it's still not enough. And so that's something we have to look at overall of additional potential belt tightening, and also still advocating at the state and federal levels for our rightful funds that we should be receiving at the same time. And that includes the full VLF. We're only getting about 65% the last 2 years, and we need to get that extra 35%. If we were able to get the full VLF, we'd nearly be in the black. If we were able to get this revenue measure and get 100% of VLF amongst all the other revenue that we, all the other revenue streams that we receive.
Okay. Thank you. And that really underlines the importance of many different efforts. Some belt tightening beyond just freezing positions, looking at services potentially we don't need or contracts we don't need. But also, I would put in a big plug for really promoting the economic development work that is being done by the city. We've passed our first economic development plan. And this is, you cannot cut your way out of a deficit. You have to grow your way, and we cannot continue to tax without looking at other things. And we understand that. And I think the economic development plan we put together is an exciting one. It's a strong one. And it's really one that our city should have. So I would really look to staff to think about how can we quantify that going forward, because I think that's important to show people. And then I think the other thing I would suggest is we have a bit of a previous example in Measure S. And Measure S was a voter-approved sales tax with an independent oversight committee, and it's been running for several years now. And we have done a lot of really great work for the community based on the revenues that came in with Measure S. So I would ask that we look to quantify that effort on Measure S so that we can give people an idea. Just this is not saying one thing or another. It's very factual. Here is what Measure S delivered in terms of for the city and the projects, to give them people even more quantifiable, tangible ideas. And then I think, then finally the ballot measure itself. I am assuming that is that format, that one great big thick paragraph is format. We can't do bullets. We can't do anything like that.
Right, that's correct. The law is clear. Your city attorney can elaborate on that.
To make it easier for people to read.
That one long sentence, but how it begins and how it ends.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Did you want me to address the
Sure.
question? I mean, no, state law does have imposed certain requirements on the ballot question. It does have to be 75 words. There's a very specific way in which one counts the words, and it can't be, say, overly, can't be argumentative. There's a lot of constraints on how the ballot question has to be constructed. So that long paragraph should really stay in the same form.
Okay. Thank you. And I think I would just like to emphasize to the public that what we will or will not do tonight, depending on how we vote, is place a ballot or choose not to place a ballot, this initiative on the ballot. But ultimately, it is our voters who will decide what the ultimate answer is to this question. So I think that's just very, very important for everyone to understand our role and the public's role. And once again, this is the importance of voting. Voting is your superpower. You have the opportunity to say yes or no. And that's a very, very important point. So, Mayor, do we want to just talk about the initiative, or do we want to talk about the nominating committee and all that now, or do you want to break it up?
Yeah, I think if you would like to make other recommendations, please feel free.
Okay, great. Well, then I would like to nominate our Deputy Mayor, Nicole Fernandez, and our Council Member, Danielle Schwerger-Gaditsky, to be the two council members that would be on the committee, should this be something we choose to put on the ballot tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just jump in and say those were the first two council members who came to my mind, as well as they've been serving on this subcommittee. And if they were amenable to such a nomination, I would echo that sentiment. And then just I'll ask if others want to chime in. Deputy Mayor Nicole Fernandez.
I did have a chance to speak to Councilmember Sviarka Goditsky this morning, and she indicated that she would also be willing to serve on the committee. So just want to make sure that, and I'm happy to do that as well if the votes, if the council compels it. So I just want to say that we don't put to echo what Councilmember Diaz-Nash said, we don't put this in front of the voters lightly. We don't make this decision with any sense of, I don't know how to say it, like greed. We understand that things are really tough for our families in San Mateo. We also understand that that there are certain city services that our residents expect in order to maintain the type of life, that quality of life that we have here. If you look at the demographic survey that, or the quality of life or satisfaction survey that the city has taken some statistics from, we have an overwhelming majority of folks who are very happy to live here. And this, in my mind, is just about keeping us afloat, maintaining the quality services, and just maintaining a really good quality of life here. And I hope that we do have a final resolution on the VLF issue. I do hope we get all of the federal money and state money that we are owed. But in the absence of that, I hope that our residents are willing to give this a chance when it's before, if it's before them, if the council opts to put this on the ballot in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Newsom.
Thank you through the mayor. I'd just like kind of to echo the sentiment of my fellow council members. You know, we don't take this decision lightly. The economy of late has been particularly unhelpful. Inflation is seemingly coming down a little, but you know, people are concerned. That said, if we move forward with this, you know, and I think everybody's in agreement with this, we need to make sure that we continue to show that we're cost cutting and we're continuing to cost cut. We need to make sure that we are showing how we're maintaining the services with the money that we are spending, and we need to make sure that we continue to put our foot on the gas and accelerate into getting our state and federal money that is owed to us. Those are all points that I think everyone agrees with. You know, I also have heard people raise the concern about the fact that, you know, San Mateo is going to lose a bit of retail, potentially 20 to 30% of retail in the next decade. How does that impact it? Well, that's a 30% loss of whatever this amount is. And a gentleman who was here in the audience a few minutes ago on break was joking that he meant to bring his quarters in so he could, you know, give us the quarters that we need. And it kind of made me think, well, geez, I wonder what that really relates to. So if this brings in $7 million a year and we have a population of 105,000 people, that means that everyone would be paying on average $6.67 more a year in sales tax, which is not even a Big Mac and soda. So, I mean, it's 27 quarters. And so, you know, again, I don't take this lightly, but I think we also need to make sure that we show or demonstrate to people that this is not going to be that painful, and it will help us retain the quality of life and the quality of services that people in San Mateo are accustomed to having. So, you know, for those reasons, I'm supportive of this. I would also like to think that, you know, we continue to look at other options going forward too. I also think it may be helpful to have a committee of volunteers that kind of monitors how we spend that extra tax money, similar to what we did with the Measure S committee. But those are all just suggestions. Doesn't preclude me from agreeing to move this forward tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate each of my fellow council members sharing their thoughts on the importance of this, and I echo everything that's been said, and we'll just add that to me this is, as has been noted, just part of the city's financial sustainability plan. we have cut millions of dollars a year without layoffs or dramatic impacts to service at this time. We are finding millions in grants for projects such as the Fashion Island 19th Avenue project that took another step forward tonight, which is vital to have our city continue to maintain, upgrade, and modernize our infrastructure as San Mateo grows. And yet there's still a structural gap between the revenue we're bringing in and the costs of the services we provide. And there's still economic uncertainty that we should do everything we can to address. This is 1/4 cent, which puts our tax rate into the majority of San Mateo County cities, which takes the remaining capacity we have as a locality to allocate this 1/4 cent toward local services and programs, which affects San Mateans and those who may visit us and patronize our businesses as part of our economic development plan. And as has been noted, ultimately, it's up to the voters. So we are merely asking the question, checking with our voters as we had through the polling process, if this is the right way forward. So I will be supporting this. I agree with Councilmember Diaz-Nash's nomination for the subcommittee to continue in the effort to bring a ballot statement position forward in a timely manner. And I thank you for your work and your ability and interest to serve in that capacity. And maybe I'll ask staff to remind us if we're simply to take a motion, and if I should read a specific.
Can we pull up the recommendation slide, please?
Yeah, please. Thank you. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Very good.
I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution ordering and calling for an election to be consolidated with the general municipal election to be held on November 3rd, 2026, submitting to the voters a measure to increase the transactions and use sales tax by an additional 1/4 cent, appropriate $158,000 for related election costs, authorize 2 members of the City Council to submit ballot arguments in favor of the measure, and introduce an ordinance establishing San Mateo Municipal Code, Chapter 3.51.
Can we just identify the 2 members you're authorizing?
2 members being Councilmember Swarko Kadiki and Deputy Mayor Fernandez.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Mr. City Clerk, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Councilmember Newsom?
Yes.
Mayor Lorraine?
Yes.
Councilmember Diaz-Nash?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fernandez?
Yes.
The motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. Thank you. This concludes item number 22. We will proceed with item number 23. November 3rd, 2026 election, placement of charter amendments on the ballot. With a presentation from City Attorney Prasanna Rasaya.
All right, good evening. I will be brief since you have seen this presentation before. Can I proceed? Okay. So I'll start with the recommendation, and that is to place a measure on the ballot to revise the city charter as indicated on the slide, to make an appropriation in the amount shown, and similarly to authorize 2 members of the council to submit arguments. So here we are in the current schedule. We've gone through the 2 required public hearings that are necessary before a charter amendment can be placed on the ballot. That was preceded by the study session, and so now we're at the decision point, since this is the last council meeting before the deadline to submit a measure to the voters. And that deadline is on August 7th, 88 days before the election. So here's the ballot question. It is certainly shorter than the prior measure you were just considering, but it does conform to state law. Like I said, it's less than 75 words, and it summarizes the thrust of the measure and is in the form required by state law. I won't read the ballot question, but it's carefully written to comply with state law requirements. And then procedurally, the measure, if the council chooses to put it on the ballot, requires a simple majority to pass. Under this proposed structure, the city clerk would publish a synopsis instead of the full text of the measure being included in the ballot pamphlet. And the reasoning behind that is because a lot of the length of the charter amendments involved really minor sort of technical changes involving like a change from, say, his/her to, say, the title of the person being referenced. So I think we can dispense with some of that and just publish a summary that address the main components of the measure, which is legally sufficient. And then finally, importantly, under the California Constitution, if the voters approve it, then it must be filed with the Secretary of State. Okay, in these next slides, you'll find very familiar. I'll just go through them quickly since you've heard this portion of the presentation before. This slide simply reflects a change to show that we are now governed by a district elections process and looks forward to each decennial federal census and how boundaries would be redrawn at that point, and addresses situations where the boundaries are changed, but that doesn't affect the term of the council member regarding their term. And if the boundaries of their district change, their term still continues until the end. And then this provision, again, addresses council members who were elected in 2017, but those terms have now been completed. This was a charter amendment required really by state law, but it's no longer necessary. And this provision, as you know, provides more flexibility for council members to be, quote, absent from the city without permission, since 30 days is quite short and 60 days is more consistent with state law applying to general law cities. This is an important one. I mean, where there's a council vacancy, 30 days is a very brief period of time to fill the vacancy. So this provide more flexibility to allow more outreach to the public, especially since vacancies can occur during the holiday season if someone is elected to a different office. So this provides some important flexibility for the council and more outreach to the public so that more applications can be solicited. And then in the same section of the city charter, this language shown in strike-through texts is being proposed for deletion because you're not going to have a situation where council members are running for more than one seat. They would be only running for a single seat in their district. So under the current charter, and in prior elections where you had an at-large election system, you could, in theory, have more than one seat vacant at the same time, and in which case this language would be relevant. But since we no longer have that system, it's no longer needed. This is very straightforward. Instead of having very specific, perhaps overly specific language in the charter, the regular meetings of the council would be held at a time specified by resolution. And then for urgency ordinances, currently the way our charter works is that a summary is not, one cannot publish a summary of an urgency ordinance. You have to publish the entire text of it. So this would allow a publication of a summary. But then also, importantly, the current charter says that an urgency ordinance automatically expires on the 91st day when you can have emergency situations that last for longer than 90 days. So this would remove that 90-day automatic expiration. This is something we discussed before, just clarifying that the finance director is the correct title, and that position is appointed by the city manager, not subject to approval by the city council. And the much lengthier language in the city charter would be removed. That requires specified biographical information, one's experience, a photograph. Instead of that information being submitted to the clerk, that would simply be deleted, and candidates would rely on other information. And really, the voters would rely on other information to know more about their candidates. I know there's a lot of strike-through text here, but currently the city charter provides for a sealed bid type of solicitation process and awarding a contract for a newspaper for publication of notices to the low bidder, which doesn't allow for consideration of other factors like circulation in the city. So the proposal is to delete this language and just amend the municipal code to allow for an RFP process, so that we can consider more relevant factors for San Mateo. And that's it. So again, the recommendation is to place a measure on the ballot, and this kind of mimics the ballot question language to revise the city charter to reflect the change to district elections, update the process for scheduling council meetings and filling council vacancies, and update or remove various other provisions that are outdated, appropriate $20,400 for related election costs, and authorize 2 council members to submit arguments, which I have a hunch who those might be, but that is up to the council. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. At this time, I'll open this item for public comment. So,
Mayor
City
Lorraine,
Clerk.
No request to speak in person, and I have no hands raised in our virtual environment.
Okay. Then I will close public comment for this item and bring it back to the dais and ask my colleagues if they have questions or feedback or both. Councilmember Diaz-Nash.
Thank you, through the mayor, and thank you to our city attorney. We've definitely had this presentation several times, and it's been very educational, so really appreciate it. And it's gotten better and along the way. So I would like to support this, and I would like to suggest that the same to council members who were working on the previous initiative, Deputy Mayor Fernandez and Councilmember Schwerker-Gaditsky, be the 2 that we nominate for this as well.
Councilmember Svierka-Gaditsky and I did chat, and she did indicate that that she would be open to this, and as would I.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'm seeing a shaking head over here, so I agree and would entertain a motion.
Okay. I'll adopt a resolution to place a measure on the ballot to revise the city charter to reflect the change to district elections, update the process for scheduling council meetings and filling council vacancies, and update or remove various other provisions that are outdated. Appropriate $20,400 for related election costs, and authorize council members Storko-Kadiki and Deputy Mayor Fernandez to submit arguments.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. City Clerk?
Certainly. Councilmember Newsom? Councilmember Diaz-Nash?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fernandez?
Yes.
Mayor Lorraine?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. This concludes item 23. And we have reached reports, announcements, and committee updates. Do any colleagues have any of these? Yes, Councilmember Diaz-Nash.
Thank you very much, through the mayor. I would just like to underline the importance of what we talked about earlier tonight. There was a public comment about potential data centers, negotiations in San Mateo, and our city manager gave us an update on that. I would very much like to ask for support of my fellow council members to direct staff to treat this with urgency and return to council at the earliest possible opportunity with an urgency ordinance establishing a temporary moratorium on new data center uses citywide while the City of San Mateo evaluates all the appropriate zoning regulations, infrastructure impact, energy consumption, water use, noise, emergency power generation, and community compatibility. And I would like to point out that that this has been something I have been talking about with my Brown Act partner, Councilmember Shurkut Kaditsky, and she is very much in support of this as well.
Deputy Mayor Fernandez.
I would eagerly support Councilmember Svirka Gaditsky and Councilmember Diaz-Nash's motion on that, and wondering if we might be able to supplement that. Staff is already writing a letter to the county regarding that potential site, and I'm wondering if there is a position that we might be able to take saying that we aren't in favor of it, if discussions have already started at the event center site, which is what some pub members of the public had mentioned.
So if I can interject through the mayor here. So I'm hearing kind of two different components. One is to just be communicating with the county as to discover like what is being proposed at the event center, the timing of it, and to elicit more information with urgency, yes. And then also a desire from a council member to return to the council at the earliest opportunity with an urgency ordinance imposing a temporary moratorium on data centers while those uses are studied and appropriate regulations can be put in place.
Councilmember Newsom.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to go on record as saying that, the fairgrounds is in the middle of my district. I've heard from a lot of my district constituents that they're very concerned about the noise hum, the electrical usage, and the water usage, all that would impact our district and the city at large. So I'd like to lend my support to this and also make sure that we do look into making sure that we hold the county accountable to communicate what's going on. Unfortunately, in the last 6 months or year, the county has had projects that have seemed to snuck up on us, and I want to make sure that we don't let that happen in this situation. Like we've heard that this could happen. I want to make sure that we are staying in front of it.
So I have direction. I don't know, Mayor, if you wanted to add anything.
I mean, I guess I did just realizing that this is not on the agenda. I don't know how far I can go, but I feel in response to this, I want to ask a question such as, do we even have jurisdiction over this anyway?
So that's a good question. I think right now we're in the information gathering stage as to what is being proposed. Who is the proposed, we just don't really have all the facts at this point in terms of on what, who would be the proposed operator, how would it actually work? Those details, or they're not even details, they're very important components of, what could be proposed out there. And those elements go kind of directly to your question, Councilmember Newsom, in terms of what authority the city has in this regard. The city, of course, has general land use authority over uses within its jurisdiction. It gets a little more complicated when we work with our partners at the county, also at the state level and the federal level. But that's one of the things that I think we need to find out is exactly what is being proposed and who is the proposed operator.
And does staff have a thought on how we can take that next step and whether that is something in between what's being proposed or in parallel?
I think it would be in parallel. I mean, certainly, and the city manager can chime in here too. I mean, even before this discussion, like the discussion about the potential use of a data center out at the event center, it's been reported in the paper, and so that certainly got our attention. And so we had already been planning on communicating with the county to find out more about that potential use. So I think that can happen right away. There's no need to wait for that at all. I mean, developing an emergency ordinance and urgency ordinance with the appropriate findings, and also crafting that legislation may take a little time, but that doesn't have to come first. I mean, we can just go directly to the county and find out more, while on a parallel track, an urgency ordinance is being examined, its feasibility and being developed.
Okay, thank you. I did see the city manager see 3 council members already interested in this. I'll just note that it seems a little premature to me to ask for an urgency ordinance on something we don't even know impacts us or that we have jurisdiction on. But I see that this is something we've heard a lot from members of our community with regard to concern. And so as others are interested, I look forward to the next steps.
So just in response, so we'll go ahead and we'll follow up with the county with a formal letter, and then I can circle back with all of you and the public of what we hear in response to that letter. And then secondly, I can't guarantee we're going to bring this thing back by August. Understanding just the agenda impacts in August and the timing it would take to put this together, but I'm hoping in the next few months to come back. I'll let you know if there's a sense of urgency, depending, because the only thing that I've really heard is from the county of interest in this overall. And so we'll look at bringing something back in the next few months. Does that sound okay?
Yes, of course.
Yes, absolutely. There are lots of other things going on, but I would want to keep a sense of urgency to keep it going, because we just need to. This will be a changing environment. There'll be a lot going back and forth, and the fact that we've been in discussions with the county over at the event center and really never heard much about this. So I just want to make sure that it stays front burner.
Okay, got that. We'll try our best here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else have reports, announcements, or committee updates? Councilmember Newsom?
Sure. Since our last council meeting, we have actually had a board of directors meeting for the San Mateo Consolidated Fire Department. Not a whole lot of noteworthy things other than, kind of budget for the next year being funded. We did get some updates on basically the overall operations of the San Mateo Consolidated Fire. And good news, if you happen to have a heart attack or happen to need any emergency services and have a ambulance or fire truck response, you are in the right city. We continue to be one of the fastest response times in the Western United States, and I'm very proud and thankful for our fire team for all their hard work. And it's not something that anybody wants to have happen, but the fact is that it's great. And I think as we look at a tax measure, it's important that we remind people that the services in San Mateo are of excellent caliber. The only other thing of note was that the hazmat response, which San Mateo runs the hazmat program for the whole county, the hazmat response, or number of incidents to date, which is 7 months of this past year, has almost surpassed the entirety of last year. So we're looking at almost a 50% increase in response. And so I'm continuing to monitor that with the fire department and the Consolidated Fire, because funding is important, and we need to make sure that the county, which funds the hazmat program, is covering the costs of the program. And so the biggest upswing obviously has been battery fires, both e-vehicles like electric vehicles, but more so with power tools and e-bikes and scooter batteries. So hopefully we can continue as a city to message the importance of making sure that you're buying safe and reliable batteries. Don't buy the cheap ones, buy the actual brand name, and make sure that they're certified and safe. And then just need to keep an eye on that as the representative for the city, and I will. So, thank you.
Thank you for that. Deputy Mayor Fernandez.
Just a couple of items, a couple of shout outs. I want to thank the staff, especially the city clerk's office and PD, for an amazing Jerry Hill ceremony on Friday. Really good turnout. I'm really glad that we were able to honor Senator Hill, who had his start in politics right here on this dais. And so thank you all. And if you haven't taken time to go out in front of City Hall and seeing the street sign, it's pretty nice to behold, especially if you're a friend or fan of Jerry. I also want to just make sure that I also echo a item that Kevin Simpson brought up earlier and just shout out PD. We had a 77% drop in reports on fireworks July 4th, and that as one of the people that Kevin called last year, I actually went out and like stood in front of his house for a couple hours on July 4th, and I've done a ride along on New Year's Eve with Lieutenant Texera last year. It was great to hear that we've done such a great job, and I think a lot of that was the drones and our Arctic. So just thank you, Chief. Thank you for PD. Thank you, staff. Just that's an amazing accomplishment. A couple of things that I just want to bring up because of the zoning item that was pulled. So just wondering if we might be able to discuss or just give some guidance to staff. Something that I'd like to have staff explore before that item is brought back is looking at the allowance or the prohibition on drive-throughs north of Hillsdale. I believe that we are not allowed to have fast food restaurants and have drive-throughs north of Hillsdale. Is that correct?
So there's just a small area in the whole city. It's not just north of Hillsdale on El Camino. There's other corridors in the city that do not allow drive-throughs in. That was something that this council has brought up for us to look into further, and so that is something that we will be looking at as part of the zoning code updates.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Another item I would like, and I think this goes, I believe that you're already having, maybe, I have actually heard who's taking it up, but I believe that we've had a proposal from some community members about having a historic marker at a previous big record studio that used to be here in San Mateo on El Camino, Rainbow Records. And I believe that there might be some chatter about our new historic commission taking that item up. And I'd like to lift up another idea. I've looped in Mayor Lorraine about this, but Takahashi Market in downtown is having its 120th anniversary in September. And this was brought to my attention by former Foster City Council member Steve Okamoto. They're having a celebration in September. So I'm hoping that maybe like the Ching Laundry historic marker, we might be able to bring the Takahashi Market to point and have a historic marker there if folks are open to that.
So I see unanimous nodding heads of approval on that, and we'll work with our newly established historic commission in the fall.
Fabulous. Thank you. And the last item I had is something that I have been thinking about for a while, and I just want to put this in front of my colleagues here. A few of our county colleagues, cities in the county, especially in Santa Clara County, but I think maybe one in San Mateo County, has floated a prohibition or on ICE utilizing city space or city facilities if they come to town doing any raids or anything in the city. And I wanted to see if maybe we wanted to have staff look into seeing if we could look into doing something similar. We have, especially in my district in North Central, we have a lot of people of color. We have a lot of folks who are very vulnerable, and I myself would never want to see city resources used for any sort of immigrant roundups. And so I'm hoping that maybe some of my colleagues might be willing, we don't know where it would go. We just would want to see if this is something that we could adapt from other municipalities who have done this.
If I can interject through the mayor. And so, I mean, certainly can have that discussion. I would also note that, we're subject to state law restrictions on the use of city resources in a similar regard, but also, it's not exactly to your point, but the city did adopt a resolution, I believe it was in 2017, about
this is the welcoming resolution that really is.
This is the welcoming resolution, so it's different. It's up to the council. You could direct staff to sort of look into this further and report back to you, and before you decide whether to agendize, put this on a future agenda, because it can get a little complicated.
I don't doubt it.
But it's up to the council. Instead of voting to agendize it now, like you could ask staff to come and report back through an off-agenda report.
Colleagues, I would love a second or a majority of nodding heads, just have staff look into it.
Second.
I see unanimous support.
So nodding my
So
head.
come back with a report.
Yep, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, oh, yes, Councilmember Newsom.
Just a reminder, we have three more concerts in the park for San Mateo. So look forward to seeing all of you out there on the dance floor.
Thank you very much. And it has been wonderful to enjoy multiple concerts in the park so far. Shout out to Parks and Rec and PAL and anyone involved in making them happen, particularly in Central Park. While we're working on a new play area, to me, I think if you had led me into Fitzgerald Field for the first time and said, this is where we've done music in the park for the last 100 years, I would believe you. And it's not a reduction in quality. It's a great time. The 4th of July was awesome. It was great to be out there. So very good. And yes, the fun continues. I wanted to give maybe just a briefest report on the last meeting I was at for the Westlight Energy Board. It was the last actual meeting of the Peninsula Clean Energy Board, and now it is known as Westlight Energy. And one item that came up there, in addition to that push, is an expectation that it will be more difficult. There are budgetary constraints and decisions sort of on the horizon there as well. There was a decision by the board at that time to consider reducing the effective discount that Westlight provides below PG&E's electricity rates from an overall target of 10%, which it had reached in times past, to more of the 5% that it had enjoyed sort of at an average. And we're going to have to continue to monitor the PCIA rate, which I won't go into now, but like on a high level is effectively an amount that Westlight has to, here I am going into it. But at any rate, I think when people shifted from PG&E to Peninsula Clean Energy about 10 years ago and onward, PG&E had purchased some long-term energy contracts. And so the state charges this PCIA to Westlight. We have to factor that in when we go through our rates, and that amount changes every year. And some years it ends up going down, and some years it goes up for various market reasons. It is going up. So that is sort of the position we find ourselves in. I'll try to be a little more cogent next time, as I have another meeting this Thursday, and if I learn more, I'll be happy to share. I'll just say National Night Out, the first Tuesday of August. I believe it's August 2nd.
August 4th.
August 4th. Thank you very much. But looking forward to seeing folks out there celebrating with police and fire and PAL and at King Center, which will be great. And I think I'll leave it there.
Just real quick update from City Manager's office. We had our kickoff for the new King Center Pool and Resiliency Center. So we had a kickoff meeting. We had over 25 residents attend the meeting. That was on July 14th. We'll also be doing both another in-person follow-up meeting that's going to be on August 3rd, and then a virtual meeting for anybody to show up on August 10th. And then we'll be coming back to the council with feedback that we receive. We'll also be doing surveys and engaging those who participate, whether it's in our summer camps, at the pool, anyone who uses the center overall, to get their feedback on this new pool and resiliency center project. So please look out for more information and please engage. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.